Yes, please go.
Hello.
All right. So, can everyone else please go on mute? So, a very good afternoon to all of you. As I was just mentioning that it's a beautiful weather here in India, in Gurgaon. It rained a lot heavily, and I just hope that because of electricity issues, internet doesn't throw us, with the tantrums. But with that, I would like to formally give a welcome address on behalf of SOCHAM as their Chair for the IPR Council, National IPR Council, Shri O.P. Gupta ji, CGPDTM Intellectual Property Office, Dr. Abhay, Chief Innovation Officer for Ministry of HRD, Government of India, Mr. A.K. Mittal, Advisor, TSDSI, Shri Sapir Anand, SOCHAM IPR Council Co-Chair and Senior Partner at Anand & Anand, and Ms. Monica Magnuson, Vice President, IPR Policy, Ericsson. Delegates, friends, panelists, a very good afternoon to all of you, and a very warm welcome to the second IPR Conclave and IPTSE Awards. As it is apparent from the title of the event to all of you, the program has two-part agenda. First is the IPR Conclave, where we have invited group of experts in the field of IP to offer their views on the India's IPR ecosystem, their feeling about it, what do they see as opportunities, as challenges, and therefore we have got two panels being set up. We have attempted to make sure that we are able to not only talk about, from the policy space, but also from the legal side and from the administration side, if there are any changes that industry as a whole and other stakeholders feel that it is desirable to bring forward in order to support future generation of innovations. The second leg of this today's event is about the awards for the intellectual property talent search examination. And this is the first online examination in India that tests the knowledge of our youth in the field of intellectual property. It is almost like any other Olympiad. You see, you know about Maths Olympiad, English, Science Olympiad, and we thought, why not we have something similar for intellectual property as well, because the importance of IPR can just not be ignored anymore. Just for those who are not so familiar with what IPTSE is, this is a joint initiative of Ericsson and SOCHAM, which is also supported by Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India, and also by Department of Science and Technology. And I see Dr. Sanjay Mishra already on board. With their great support, we've been able to make this to a huge success. We will be very pleased if we also get support from other ministries and relevant departments, especially from Intellectual Property Office, because a lot of students from the engineering background, from science and tech background, have shown their keen interest in in having a small visit to Intellectual Property Office, just so that they have a look and feel of how it looks like, where are the patents granted, who gives them the federal rights on different aspects of IPR. I am very pleased to also mention here that for IPTSC, we've been able to endorse 12 plus MOUs with many technical and other educational institutions, including that with AICTE. IPTSE is an annual examination which has been primarily designed for our youth, our young leaders, our future innovators, and industry leaders. So it is meant for class 11th, 12th students, for undergraduate students, for polytechnic students. Also, from this year onwards, which is the third series of IPTSC, we are trying to imbibe few more stakeholders, right? Like the startups, the SMEs, also people from fashion industry, media entertainment, and students from all across the country. They are invited for this exam. In fact, this year it was so good that we were able to reach out to 30,000 schools, 700 universities, and 25,000 plus polytechnics. And approximately 500 institutions have already participated this year. with 8,000 plus students who appeared for the examination. Um, since last year, we have seen a good jump in total number of registrations for this exam. Those who register for the exam are also given, course content which have been tailor-made more into an animated form and in a story format, so that it becomes easy for people who are completely naive to this subject to understand this aspect of IPR. In these 2 years, we have ourselves as organizers evolved a lot and changed our systems, upgraded our systems. There is a whole new web portal that has started this year. We have also now initiated proctored examination. So from this year onwards, students will have to undergo proctored examination so that there are no pilferages and only the best of the winners, the worthy students are awarded for their efforts. With this small welcome address, I really wish all the students a very best for the results that we are going to announce today in few minutes from now. I also would like to give my best wishes to all the panelists, because we as ASSOCHAM will try to compile all the inputs that you give and will be more than happy to submit it to relevant authorities. Also, we will make other submissions as well as it comes out from today's conference and from today's awards. With this, I would like to warmly welcome Sri A.K. Mittalji, Advisor TSDSI, for his remarks, for his special address.
Thank you, Sheetal, for this very informative opening remarks. And it was very good to note that ASSOCHAM is running this IPTSE program. It was a new thing for us to know, and actually it encourages people in the industry that we are creating people who will know what is IP and will work in this area. So, good afternoon, everybody, my fellow panelists and all the attendees. Because I am working with the TSDSI as advisor and have been through the grind of IPR policy of the organization. So I will briefly introduce what is TSDSI, relevant for when we talk about IPRs and telecommunications. So TSDSI, full name is Telecom Standards Development Society India. It was set up in 2014, and it was initially with about 10, 12 organizations, IITs and some manufacturers. They joined together and set up this organization. Later, it received the blessings of Department of Telecom, who recognized this as a standards development body for India for telecommunications, and then started supporting it in various ways. Now, it is basically a collaborative platform for academia, government, industry, startups, and I think it covers all the domains. If you go into if you see broadly, and they come together, they exchange ideas, they create standards for telecommunications, and the objective of standards development in TSDSI is two ways. One is that to develop standards for India specific requirements, and also to develop India specific requirements and get them incorporated into international standards. So both ways, it promotes standardization, and the industry and government, they collaborate to share ideas and develop technical reports and technical standards. Now, the organization, currently we have about 60 plus members, which consist of like handset manufacturers, chip manufacturers, telecom equipment manufacturers, telecom service providers. Then we have software companies like Wipro, and we have like TCS, then manufacturers like Sterlite, Tejas, and Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung. And then we have government departments and PSUs and autonomous bodies like ISRO, MITI. We have DOT, CDOC, CDAC, TCIL, BSNL, and there are so many. And Tata Motors is also one of them, and you will be surprised why a motors company is here. So when we talk more about the standards and the IPs, then you will understand why they are there, or why their similar organizations should be there. The current areas of work, important areas of work in TSDSI are, for example, 5G, beyond 5G, what is the next phase of technology which should come? And also associated studies in spectrum requirements for future technologies and even the 5G technologies. Then the public protection, disaster relief. Then we have mobile data protection and privacy. We have drones, communication. So these are the kind of subjects, including the cyber security, or especially with respect to the telecom. So all these are broad areas where we are working now. And the recent major achievement for TSDSI have been that the 5G standard of 3GPP, it was modified for meeting some India-specific rural coverage requirements, and it has become an independent standard in ITU, which is called IMT 2020, and will be released later this year. So there are other things also in pipeline, and we hope that in future more and more standards will be developed to meet India requirements, and where that is where we need the industry and participants from all hues. We have, for giving us a push on research side, we have a large number of IITs as our members and triple ITs also as our members. We have collaboration agreements with a number of SDOs in the world, and we are member partners of 3GPP. Many of you may be aware, 3GPP is uh, third generation partnership project. It started with 3G, so that is called 3G, third generation, but it is doing 5G now and moving beyond that. And because of that membership, the member companies of TSDSI can participate in 3GPP activities. Similarly, 1M2M is machine-to-machine communication consortium, where also TSDSI is a member. And our members are contributing there for development of these standards, which will be very useful for smart cities and other smart applications, including intelligent transport. It is basically providing a common service layer for interoperability and of different sectors, and providing lots of facilities. So all that work is going on. So having talked about briefly about TSDSI, what we are doing and what we have done in the past and who are our members. So now coming to the intellectual property rights, or IPRs, they are very closely linked with standards. I'm about other sectors of economy, how the interplay of IPRs and standards in those areas takes place, like pharmaceuticals or chemical industries. I think I can give a fair idea in the given short time that IPRs are closely linked with standards in telecom, and telecom standards have been there from the very beginning, because interoperability and harmonization are most important part of telecommunication since its beginning. And International Telecom Union (ITU), which is a body of UN, was created long back in 1800s, but it took a formal shape after World War II. And so member states were the members there, but now as technology changed, there were private consortiums of industries which started developing standards. 3GPP is like one, and 1M2M is one. There are so many in internet field and other fields of telecommunication and ICT in general. So there is now a collaboration between ITU and all these bodies, which happens. And the regional bodies like TSDSI, we have European body like IPTSE, we have American body like ATIS, and some others like Japanese, China. So they are there who bring together these diverse industries to work in a collaborative manner to develop the standards. And there, when you develop a standard, what happens that for developing a particular standard, you can do in various ways. There can be methods and processes to achieve a standard. And that is where there is a competitive spirit. People work out solutions, and while developing standards, this is really a collaboration and competition, and a lot of dynamics involved in what way the solutions are accepted and become part of the standard. And those solutions if they are covered by a patent, and more often than not, they are covered by a patent, a standard essential patent, that without those patents, a solution and a standard cannot be actually implemented. So there in telecommunications, patents and they are becoming a SEP, it plays a very, very important role. So while on one side it may appear that, okay, this is a competition and somebody's solution is accepted, but then it is not one solution which is accepted as a part of a standard. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of standard solutions in a standard. And if you talk about a mobile telephone today, which looks such a simple device to all of us as a consumer device, it has more than 2.5 lakhs, 5 lakh patents. So this is the dimension of patents in telecom for which competition happens. The people talk, people agree on solutions, and then people, and then the difficulty or the challenge, should not say difficulty. The challenge is that technology is changing very fast. You have 4G today, but then 4G also keeps on changing till the 5G comes. And 5G comes, it keeps on changing when 6G comes. And those changes happen every 6 months or 1 year. And even those patents which were maybe applicable for initial version may not be applicable as is in the new versions. So all those challenges happen. So we'll not go into details of that because that is a different dynamics. So, but at the same time, when we say we are in standards, it's a real challenge to be a participant in standards, because you have to get your solutions accepted, and for doing that you must be having some strength or partnership with other companies and all that. So a new kid on the block always finds it very difficult and see what is happening and how to get solution implemented. It takes time to develop partnerships. And today, the companies who are prolific contributors to standards and IPs, one day they were also the new kids on the block. So they had their own share of struggles to reach there where they are today. So, this is a kind of game which is played, and ultimately it is for the interest of humanity as a whole, because it provides interoperability, economies of scale, then competition, avoids lock-in, and all those are the advantages. Apart from standards, IPs have their own complexities, which will come now. Now, once we say IPs are so important, so there was a need that the SDOs also somehow compel or bind their members that whatever IPs they have, they will provide a license to a manufacturer or a person who needs it. So their IPR policies, every standards body has, and in one way or the other with minor variations, they actually ask or bind the members that they will disclose their IPRs and also license on fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory manner. Sometimes fair word is not there, but more or less they are same, and there is no standard definition of a fairness and non-discrimination. When there is a fight, then only courts decide. But friend as a concept is there, and when people understand and they want to settle things without fight, so they understand each other. Now, so with that binding, when standards are being developed, the members are obliged. Of course, it is voluntary, but it is in their interest that they declare their IPRs. Okay, this is the where we have IPRs. But to give them flexibility, because the standards world and the IPR world is very wide and very complex. So there are two types of flexibility, two types of declarations they can do. One is general, okay, against this standard, whatever IPRs I have, I will license. Another is they can declare, okay, this is the IPR I have against this standard, maybe against this clause or against this solution. So it depends in what way they want to declare. So all that declaration is given so that it is in the knowledge of the members and also the public in general, because these IPR declarations are put in public domain by the SDOs so that anybody who wants to use them can see. Of course, the IPRs for different standards are declared at different places. All that complexity is there. So there are people who have a business of searching IPRs and providing the information that what are the IPRs applicable for a particular product. So that's a different separate industry. Now, the IPR policy, just one simple thing what happened when we were developing the IPR policy for TSDSI. So the question was that who declares IPR and what is the domain of IPR declaration? For example, the foreign companies who have Indian registered entities in India, Indian registered entities do not normally have IPRs in their name. It is either in their principal's name or some associate companies who are not Indian registered entities. So after some discussion and agreement, there was a procedure worked out and incorporated into the policy that the Indian counterparts of the foreign companies will declare IPRs on behalf of their principals or whomsoever in their conglomerate holds those IPRs. And a kind of URL can be declared if full IPRs cannot be declared. It is difficult. So all that goes on, as a collaborative effort, all that goes on, that what is convenient and what is useful and what is required. So all that balancing keeps on happening, and the IPR policy keeps on changing. Every SDO has some or the other issue pending for IPR policy, what they have today, to amend it or whatever. So, so in that case, so when somebody is participating in standards, he must be aware what is IPR, how it is implemented, how it should be filed, so that he gets the right at the right time to get a fair economic value out of that, commercial value out of that. So once we see that the world of standards and then the world of IPRs, so it is very important that the knowledge of these two fields must be available with the academia, that how to do it. And most important part is that today in India, especially the startup ecosystem, which is primarily based on innovation, and they have money only for innovation and doing something, they are very short of money, then how do they participate in the standards and IPR process? So, so these are the questions. So once we see that what is available with us today and what we should do, what is available with us today is maybe an act of patents and designs in 1910 or 11, and then amended Patents Act in 1970, which has recently given a lot of privileges for the startups also. So now around that, there should be an effort, a joint effort from government and industry to see that we become, enough sufficiently, empowered to handle this field, which is quite complex. And for that purpose, what I can think of the actions is creating awareness. That people should be aware, industry, academia, and startups. Then they should be able to participate in standards, not only in India, but also they should be able to go abroad. And then one of the important things is that the research what is happening in the country should be standards driven. We have a lot of research happening in the academic institutions all over the country, and a lot of research is also funded by different departments and agencies of the government. So I think there is an opportunity for those agencies and departments to see that how to direct those or how to prioritize the projects which are actually driven towards standards, or which can be driven towards standards, and prioritize them and fund them. And not only fund them for doing that research, but also make that condition that, okay, out of that fund, they can participate in the standards bodies, they can pay the fees, they can travel for participation in standard bodies, not only in India, but abroad also. There can be some measurable parameters fixed. We are not going into that right now because every subject has its pros and cons and methods to be achieved. So, so idea is that, and then I think this is what is happening today, people who are already in the field. But then to create a future generation, like on the line of IPTSE program, probably we can consider introducing standards and IPs combination into curriculum at appropriate stage in the schools or colleges or the universities, and courses also, non-technical side also, in appropriate courses like commerce or economics or law, and in technical side, engineering side. So I think that will create a generation which is fully aware and equipped to understand the complexities of this field, and it's nothing new for them. Of course, there is a field of lawyers who will always remain. IPR is less technical, less of technical, and then more of law. It's a very interesting thing to watch. And so these are the things which I can foresee, that the things which are required as the ecosystem, and we know, and I can inform this gathering who are not aware, that there was a forum called 5G High Level Forum, which made a recommendation that we should fund the travel of startups and certain selected categories of companies to participate in standard formulations and to travel to the SDO meetings where they can take their contributions. So all that I think process is still on, and probably that needs to be speeded up so that, see, technology is not waiting for us, for anybody. It is moving fast. People are working in India also, but to take their outputs to the standard bodies takes understanding, money, and time both. So all that is required to be done. So finally, concluding, I can make maybe two observations. One is that the I've not dwelt into that part because time is too less for doing all that. There are a lot of legal complexities when a license is given to a person who wants a license for a IPR to be implemented. So there are complex things. There are court cases also, but there are also good faith negotiations. So and there are patent pools and so many things. I think the experts in here in the panels today will tell you about all those things. So I think that it's just a wish. How it will be done, only experts can handle about it. Is that this should be made simpler. The effort should be to make IPR licensing simpler, and especially for those people who don't have a market power. Because when people have market power, they can negotiate better. When they don't have market power, they are weak to negotiate. People have reciprocal licensing. Because I have some like IPR, you have some IPR that is exchanged. So all those negotiations make simple and the burden of cost reduces. But on the new persons who don't have market power, they have difficulty. So I think there is a need probably to consider that how to bring this system into a very simple system, easy to execute and less cumbersome for a beginner. And second part is that SHM is an industry body. There are so many industry partners here from different verticals. The 5G standard which has come is basically more suited and targeted towards verticals. Different vertical industries can be given different kind of differentiated services. That is why we have Tata Motors with us, and some more different agriculture and medical sector people are also shortly going to join us. So the industry can consider participation in standards through TSDSI. They can come as a guest member initially and then see and then start participating. So I think the ball can be started from here right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mittal, for an excellent address. And I must confess and mention to the audience here, truly inspiring work that TSI is doing, especially when few of us as industry were witness to the entire IPR policy reform and how TSDSI took complete transparent process and the industry views, other stakeholders' views. And I recall it took almost 7 to 8 months to come to a common understanding. And it was a great effort from TSDSI to bring everyone on a common board, especially when the business interests are so diverse. And just one key takeaway from your speech is that, it is complex for sure, but IP awareness and collaboration is the way to go forward. And, good faith negotiations with each other, respect for each other's IP is the way forward to make it more simple going ahead with. So with this, I would now like to invite Dr. Abhay. He is a Chief Innovation Officer at Ministry of HRD. Welcome you on board, sir. You are on mute and your video is also not on. It looks like there is a bandwidth issue at his side. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Dr. Abhay, you just have to unmute it.
Yeah, I know there was a connection. I know there, Sheetal, there was a connection problem. So it was not allowing me to unmute.
Oh, okay. Right. So
now
it's done.
Now. Yeah. Now I can. I know you can hear me.
Thank you.
So, Honorable O.P. Gupta ji, Miss Monica ji, A.K. Mittal ji, I would really like to thank ASSOCHAM, Ericsson, and Department of Science and Technology for conceptualizing this IP conclave. It is really the need of the hour. Because if we are aiming for $5 trillion economy, which our Prime Minister has given us the goal. We are aware that due to the current COVID crisis, there will be some contraction. But the long-term goal is this $5 trillion economy. And if we are aiming for this economy, then we have to evolve as knowledge-based society, as knowledge-based economy. And from that perspective, we believe that IP creation is one of the most important aspects. Few days back, I was giving a talk at one forum, and there we were talking about nationalism, patriotism, and so on and so forth. And at that time, I said on that forum that if you want to really be true nationalist, if you want to be really true patriotic, then we really need to focus on IP creation, because that could be the new real definition of nationalism, patriotism. It was appreciated by the forum there. But I genuinely believe that when we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, for me, it is not just make in India for India, but it is make in India for the world. We really need to generate ideas which will not only have impact within this country, but should have a global impact. As I work with Ministry of Education, and Sheetal now from yesterday, now we are not MHRD, we are Ministry of Education. We work with large number of higher educational institutes, about 40,000 plus educational institutes, and large number of lakhs of schools in this country. But my role is more on higher educational institutes. And within this country, if you see, we have more than 10,000 plus technical institutions which are there, and 80 lakh students who are doing just technology. But unfortunately, if you really look at our IP filing which happens, it's far below the par as compared to our demographic dividend and what is achieved by our competing countries. If you really look at IP filing which happens in China, it's more than 13.5 lakh, 14 lakh IPs are filed on annual basis. And I'm pretty sure that Gupta ji will talk more about it in his address. US is in second position, where they end up filing about 6.5 lakh, 7 lakh IPs. And if you really look at IP filing in India, it's somewhere between 45,000 to 50,000. Out of which, maybe around 30% are by Indians, rest 70% or 65 to 70% are by NRIs. So this needs to change. As I said, we have 80 lakh students who are just doing technology, and totally we have about 3.5 crores to 4 crores students who are doing higher education. But if you look at the IP which is coming from educational institutions are not more than 2,000, 2,500 IPs. And these IPs are getting generated only in top tier 1 organizations like IITs, NITs, IISc Bangalore, and so on and so forth. So now we have conceptualized a program called as National IP Literacy Initiative, and we will be launching it soon. So we are in talks with some other ministries. I will also take this opportunity to reach out to Gupta sir to join us in this initiative. So what we realized was that when we looked at our higher educational institutes, more than 95 to 97% of our institutes have never filed IP ever. And we are talking about higher educational institutes. So what we felt was that if we have to create the culture of IP creation in these institutes, then we really need to ensure that we make them literate, we train them, we handhold them, and we create the culture within these institutes, because ideas just don't come to Chinese or US people. We also are good people, we also have brains. But unfortunately, what is really lacking is an ecosystem to take these ideas forward logically and file them as IPs. Also, we end up blaming our educational system, which is over a period of time has evolved into swallow and vomit kind of an education system, where we end up actually killing the creativity, and we end up creating a generation of our youngsters which are just focusing on marks or grade, chasing jobs, and not keen on pursuing new ideas. So as you now see, we have unveiled our new education policy, which is making some radical changes. And we are now coming up with National Research Foundation, which is on line of National Science Foundation in US, to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in the right way in our educational institutes. Another important initiative which we have brought in and which we are currently hammering a lot on large number of our educational institutes is National Startup Policy for faculty and students. So we have conceptualized this National Innovation and Startup Policy because what we realized was that there was no clear incentivization, as Sheetal was also initially saying, for faculties and for students to get into IP filing, entrepreneurship, pursuing those IPs, actually converting those IPs into ventures, conversion of what we can say knowledge into wealth is not there. So we said we really need to come up with policy, and we unveiled that policy last year. And now we are working very, very closely with large number of universities and higher educational institutes so that they can adopt this policy. So last week we trained about 1,500 plus faculties in this regard. Because the IP, we can always say, okay, IP needs to be generated. But to maintain that IP, we need to ensure that the monetization of IP is high. And once the monetization is associated with that IP gets really good, then there is an intrinsic motivation for faculty and students to go ahead, pursue this path. So we have made some major recommendations in that regard. And one of the recommendation is that the institute or the university needs to budget heavily for IP filing. Another initiative which we are doing to ensure that IP filing goes up is training of faculty as innovation ambassadors. So till date, we have trained about 6,000 faculties as innovation ambassadors. And when we are training these faculties, one of the component of this training, especially for one faculty within these module within this training, is IP filing, IP management, not only at what we can say just management, but how we can actually get into the monetization of this IP. So we will soon be requesting our Prime Minister to address these innovation ambassadors, because we believe, as I said, because I think I was initially told that I have only 6 or 7 minutes. I've already overspent time. So I would like to just conclude by saying that we believe that if we have to evolve as knowledge-based society or knowledge-based economy, then our higher educational institutes need to evolve as islands of innovation. And if we want to ensure that our higher educational institutes evolve as islands of innovation, then we need to ensure that ecosystem really flourishes. This innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem really flourishes in these institutions. And IP filing is going to be one of the important criteria for us. So with these words, as we are already running out of time, I really thank once again ASSOCHAM, Ericsson, for inviting me and for this initiative and conceptualizing this initiative. I wish you best luck for your subsequent sessions and for the awards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abhijit, for wonderful remarks and great suggestions. In fact, like you rightly mentioned, there is a huge potential already that India has. In fact, one of the testimonies to prove that point is there is not so dated WIPO report, which shows that the total number of foreign filings done, around 62% of the patent applications filed at WIPO carried Indian inventors as the names. And it is a little bit of irony to see that when there are so many foreign filings, how come that it's in domestic country, we don't see commensurate filings as such. And I can recall my recent discussions with some of the startups. They still see IP as a cost center and not really as an investment. They get really bogged down with, oh, so much of money that we have to spend for lawyers' fee, for office filings, for maintenance, etc., etc. So I think there needs to be, like you rightly mentioned, the mindset change, and that can only happen if we are able to change the mindset of our youth or the young generation. And that's the reason why we initiated IPTSE. Thanks once again, sir, for your wonderful remarks. With this, I would like to invite Ms. Monica Magnuson, Vice President, IPR Policy, Ericsson, for her address.
Thank you, and good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all of you. Honorable members of the dais, delegates, and dear friends. Thank you for joining us today at the second edition of IPTSE, Intellectual Property Talent Search Examination, and IP Conclave, which aims to bring together the brightest minds of acknowledging the growing importance of IPR in India. In a bid to raise awareness about intellectual property rights among young students in the country, the Intellectual Property Talent Search Examination initiative was launched in 2018, supported by ASSOCHAM and Ericsson. This is India's first intellectual property talent search exam, and it aims at establishing how IP is at the core of every field, every category, every career, and reflects innovation and expression, no matter what form it takes. Ericsson supports this initiative because we believe in innovation and creativity. Ericsson has over 54,000 granted patents and has been awarded by several great platforms of well repute for its innovation and leadership in R&D. We have a big pool of scientists with a variety of experience. And our landmark 5G patent that has been granted in several countries lists more than 130 inventors, testament to good teamwork within the company. It's also indicative of technological complexity that requires several brains to work together, intensive R&D, and a consumer-centric approach to bring the best technologies to the world. This all shows Ericsson to be a leader in telecom standardization. Since 1999, Ericsson has made approximately 50,000 technical contributions to 3GPP to develop 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G standards. That's 15,000 more than any other company. 5G standards will boost performance between networks, devices, and operators, creating new revenue streams with radical new business models and use cases. For example, the education sector is one such sector that is understood to benefit from 5G, given its low latency and high reliability, enabling remote learning, to mention just one. Indian industry as a whole can, in fact, also benefit by developing various 5G-enabled use cases. This initiative is supported by the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India. In continuing our efforts, Ministry of Science and Technology also extended support for IPTSE 2019-2020, as well as for upcoming sessions. The IPTSE 2019-20 is an annual examination designed for school and college students across streams targeting class 9 to 12, school students, and undergraduate college or polytechnic students. The objective is to help shape young minds to be cognizant of the importance of IPR in the professional world and to foster the spirit of innovation and enterprise amongst India's vast young talent pool. The examination approached students of various schools and universities from across the country to participate in the second season of this online examination in January 2020. Since the first edition in 2018, we have seen more than 13,000 young aspirants take the exam. We have honed and refined the exam over 2 years, and after talking to several different segments of the audience, we have revamped it for this edition. The IPTSE 2020 offers exams to 5 different kinds of candidates: school students, university students, law students who may or may not have prior knowledge of IPR, design and media students, and researchers. So it's very broad. We hope to see more students understanding and utilizing IP and harnessing its power to innovate and create for art, for tech, for beauty, for profit, for the future of India. We're highly pleased to have received support from many partners, including universities with whom an MOU has been signed. This enables the students of that university to participate in the IPTSE. There are more than 12 MOUs that have thus far been signed. We've also launched a new website that will let each of these categories of people understand why IPR is important for them. And we're introducing a new IPTSE Youth Leader Program. These youth leaders will be picked up from institutes around India and will be spreading awareness and engagement about IPTSE through social media channels, ensuring webinars, outreach, conducting intra-college activities, and driving registrations. We believe it's significant to nurture the young talent and establish IP awareness early during school itself to encourage safety and protection in innovation. This is the right way to invent. With the right measures, unique innovations will continue to prosper and continue in boosting the economic growth of this country. India has indeed a huge innovation potential, and we are sure larger IP awareness will further boost this creativity and help realize this great potential. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for coming forward today to express your support towards making IPTSE and ultimately India a great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica, for a wonderful address. And I think, like you rightly mentioned, why as Ericsson, we initiated this IPTSE as an initiative, because there is a DNA within Ericsson that believes in innovation and creativity. And we thought that why don't we give it back to the society and maybe share our experience and have exchange of information. So thank you so much for your address once again. So now we are on the much awaited moment of announcing the results. Monica mentioned that I should take the names of our winners. And thereafter we will have, we'll have a special address from Mr. O.P. Gupta, our chief guest for today's ceremony. But here comes the names, and I'm just reading them out. First of all, top 3 college category awards, the first, second, and third winners. And believe you me, these are the names that have emerged as the IP think tanks, maybe because now they have more awareness about IP out of 8,000 students who really appeared for the examination. And it comes as a great surprise to me when I see the names that they are from the same college, which kind of shows that maybe this college is giving a lot of impetus on IP, and that's the reason that we are able to receive such names. So the first name is Miss Sundareshwari M. She has All India rank #1 from college, and its name is Karpagam Academy of Higher Education from Tamil Nadu. From the same college, second winner is Miss Shiva Shakti. And I think the screen is getting changed just to show their names maybe. Miss Shiva Shakti as All India rank holder #2 from the same college, Tamil Nadu. This is the college category awards. And the third is Miss Kavya Velingiri, All India rank 3 from the same college again, state Tamil Nadu. Now I have pleasure to announce the names of winners from schools. I mean, it is so good to see school children learning about IP, talking about not to pirate, not to plagiarize, and there has been some couple of videos that have been becoming viral. How small students are talking about why it is important to create on our own and maybe just get inspired and not imitate. So here are the names, friends. School category awards, the All India rank holder 1, Mr. Abhishek Yadav. He's from school Vidya Gyan School, and the state is Uttar Pradesh. Second All India rank holder, Mr. Sukar Sharma, and the school is Amity International School, Pushp Bihar, and from state Delhi. Third is Prithvi Singh, All India rank holder #3 from school again Vidya Gyan School. So once again, all the very best from all of us to these young school of IP specialists, emerging budding IP specialists. Thanks once again for joining us for this IPTSE exam. And we look forward to see more of your friends learn about IP. With this, I would now like to invite our chief guest for today, Sri O.P. Gupta ji, for his special address.
Thank you, Sheetal. First of all, I should compliment ASSOCHAM and Ericsson for organizing this event. And in fact, this IP talent search examination itself is a very noble concept. And I should compliment you people for organizing this and taking Indian innovation landscape forward. My fellow panelists, Ms. Monica, Mr. Mittal, Mr. Jere, and all the participants, very good afternoon to everybody. I'm very happy to be part of this program today because when we talk about IP and innovation, the real thing is where do we capture it? And as Mr. Jere pointed out, through the statistics, that is so important what he really talked about, that despite India being such a large country, having such a large pool of technical manpower, technical institutions, our colleges, our institutions, our R&D centers, still why the number of filings in India are so less. Now, out of the two basic reasons, one reason what he highlighted, and that is what being now being addressed by the Ministry of Education, as various steps required to be taken in the educational institutions, whether it is training of faculty, whether it is awareness amongst the students, or whether creating right infrastructure in these institutions to provide the research and development facilities. Because ultimately, to filing innovation or patent applications, you need to have that innovation first. And where does that innovation come from? Of course, the research development is the main activity which result in innovations. But as we all know, the modern innovations are not only hypothetical or theoretical research projects. They need to be useful to the society and financially viable as well. And therefore, the industry component becomes as important. Now, the research activities, when they are associated with the industry and the technical problems arising in the industry, we see a real change in the overall innovation ecosystem. And that's where academia industry partnership is a very important component in all innovation ecosystems which have developed very well across the world. And we have seen in developed economies, the innovation ecosystem is supported because we have seen so many times that lots of academic institutions have direct permanent partnerships with industries. And in fact, we have seen that professors, they at times work in industry as managerial positions or technical positions, and then they come back to industry in teaching positions. And this is one aspect which in India, we are still in the phase of development. And today's program, where SOCHM as the industry participant, industry leader, Ericsson as one of the lead innovation industry across the world, and our institutions, the colleges or schools where this tailors exam is conducted, they are coming together. And that's why I said should complement all of you participants in this talent search process, because this is the base step which will actually create the future IP landscape in the country. And I see the sessions and the topics in today's thing, the most important thing which has been, the basic reason for all this is nurturing next generation of innovators. Of course, through IP, a little difficult for me to understand, because innovators, once their generation is, nurtured, then IP is the natural consequence of that. So IP for me is an end result of innovations, and nurturing the generation of innovators is an important aspect. How do we do? Whether we show them the IP output as the first, as the incentive, or we create an ecosystem between industry and academia in a way that this generation feel assured that when they undertake these projects, these research and development activities in the academia, they can create a good future, not only for themselves, but to the society. Even today, when I remember my college days, when we were doing engineering, pure sciences, very few people still will go in pure sciences and take up research activities, because at that time the landscape in the country was not really that commensurate that you can you do research, but what is the future of your overall process? Your innovations may result in a few PhD degrees, but whether they get commercialized, whether they get ultimately marketable, they will get converted into marketable product and processes, whether the output, the return on your efforts and investment you will receive was certainly not sure. But today, as we all know, that landscape has changed. And the country is very clearly identified that people who are doing this activity, the research and development and taking forward the country, now the concept of, say, startups or new business entrepreneurs is ready-madely available, whereby people develop an IP and immediately try and commercialize it through a startup system or some other entrepreneurial system. And there are enough government policies and schemes which provide you enough support, not only for filing and protecting your IP, but to commercialize it as well. So in India, we have the Startup India program, where a number of incentives are given to the industry and to the startup entrepreneurs to really convert their ideas and IPs into marketable products. So that is real positive change. And this particular activity, what we have, discussing today, that this next generation of innovators, they can feel assured that if they really, undertake this kind of innovation activities, not only they'll get a protected IP, which can be an asset not only in India, but across the world. They can also convert it to a marketable product or a process through the changed ecosystem, which will provide them as reasonable returns on their efforts and investment and take them forward in future life. So that is a one major change. So this young generation of college students and school students who are participants in this program, that is, very, they should understand that this is a very wonderful nurturing tool now in today's India. And India as a growing economy, as the Honorable Prime Minister has declared that India, we wish to make India a 5 trillion economy in near future. That economy will certainly come on through innovation. As we all know, in old world, when an auto company, something like General Motors, probably took decades to get a valuation of $1 billion. But today, a startup starting actually end up getting that kind of valuation in the span of few months. So the wealth creation through innovation is immense. And now we know the top 4 or top 5 companies in the world, their tangible assets are next to nothing. Their whole value is in intangible assets. And these are good enough examples to give incentive to the next generation that this is where the future lies. And India, being such a young country, this young generation coming forward through this, large technical institutional pool and the R&D activities which we have in India, as Mr. Jere pointed out, and the policies as part of the new education policy. That is another pillar which is kind of being erected to provide that sound platform for next generation of innovators. So nurturing the next generation of innovators through various government policies and real interaction with industry. That is the key. And IP will be a natural consequence of all this innovations as we move forward. Evolving innovation landscape, how do we support when one of the major reasons, because as somebody talked about, that in WIPO, almost 70% innovator names are Indians. But why so many filings are not there in India? We all know that till around 2 years back, India used to an examination of patent application used to take up to 6 or 7 years. And the whole patent grant process could have taken up to around 8 to 10 years. But the government, after the national IPR policy was declared in 2016, the government has really taken steps and efforts to speed up the whole process. And as you are aware now, we are already examining applications today which were filed in late 2019 in certain technology fields. In fact, in one of the technology field, we are already examining applications which were filed in 2020. And I'm talking about this as natural queue, not the expedited queue, because that is the second aspect which we have now made available for people who really need, their innovations to be protected very quickly. And startups are one of those entities because their whole system relies mainly on IP. And if we do not protect their IP in quick time, then that startup, it's very difficult for them to really grow and scale up. And that's why we came up with the concept of expedited examination. And initially, though it was only for startups and entities who are choosing India as the ISA, but now we have increased it to lot many categories. And that includes all the educational institutions, R&D institutions. And that's where now we have provided that second platform where your IP in less than a year, especially patents, in less than a year in India. Now that is almost the quickest in the world, almost as quick as anywhere in the world. And therefore, the protection aspect we have brought in. The policy aspect, the government has already provided, whether it's through Startup India policy or Make in India initiative or various other initiatives of the Department of Industrial, Industries, or through the Ministry of Education in of supporting educational institutions and the research and development institutions. Next, and the final real keyword is the market aspect, as to, because even if all the IP gets created, you may really develop a product or a process. What about the market? Because till the time a product or the process is marketable and competent, can within the competition in the market, long-term returns will not come, and you will not really generate that kind of surplus to really take it forward. For which India, of course, as we say, India itself is a big market, which provides you that opportunity. But now you have recently heard Honorable Prime Minister's announcement that in India now we shall not only make for India or make in India, we shall make in India for the world. So the overall scenario which is being proposed to be created in future is that we provide all kind of infrastructure and the support where you can the competitive systems through infrastructure or through various other support systems, where you can develop, manufacture, and create those things which are from price and cost point of view also competitive worldwide. And that's where the market comes in play. So when I see these two sessions which are proposed after this award function is completed, that these are really relevant aspects, and the group target group which has been taken up, the college students, the technical people, and the young minds in the schools, is the real most apt group which has been selected. And that is one thing, that when this aspect is understood by our young generation, which is either in a school or in colleges, that through innovation and through the modern technologies as they come forward, they can create a future for their own. In our times, we still used to look forward to a job either in the government or in big industries which were available at that point of time. Now in India, the things have changed now. Not many people should be or are looking to the structured job where they join a job and continue for 30 years or 40 years of their life and then retire from those jobs. I'm sure young generation, young minds, they are restless to do new things, innovate, create, and be entrepreneur in themselves. And this program, I'm sure, is going to be a very important step in this direction. Only one suggestion which I would like to make, which the organizers can consider, and with Ministry of Education being represented here, also consider. Why I'm saying so, when we were in schools and early colleges, there used to be National Talent Search Scholarship, which used to be given to the bright students who would ultimately end up being, in engineering colleges or in science, pure science disciplines, or in the top level of academia. We used to be given scholarships to support as an student, because in India still, whatever we say, a lot of meritorious students come from lower middle class and poorer background. Those students still may not consider themselves financially good enough to take this kind of risk which is associated in this going in pure sciences and going in research and development activities, rather than taking up a job which is available immediately after they complete their college education. Now, some kind of a long-term perspective where industry support the program, and some scholarships can be instituted for top innovators. As we, the government already gives grant for PhD students, but that is a kind of a subsistence grant. But kind of a, scholarships can be considered or thought of, where innovators get these scholarships to support themselves till the time the innovations get market they get marketable products, and enough support systems start coming. So that is one aspect which can be considered, because that will then motivate a lot many young students and young minds to take up these kind of activities and this kind of risk in their future life. With this, I again compliment SOCHM, Ericsson, and all, of course, winners. It's wonderful that, three of them, they come from the same area, same college, or same state. That's a wonderful thing. So this will now, this can also create a competition. As we have already seen that something like ease of doing business or innovation index, these competitions are already there. In fact, I was reading in today's paper also only that there's already index, which I think Ministry of Education announced these days for the technical institutions, for innovation educational institution index, Atal Innovation Index, where they rank the institutions based on the innovation potential or innovation activities undergoing in these institutions. Now, this is, that index, of course, is going to prompt a lot of educational institutions to try and better their innovation ecosystem. But this program, this talent search process, can also supplement that aspect, because the colleges, the institutions from where these talent search students will come and win these awards, they'll get highlighted, and that will be known in the public that, okay, this state, these institutions, they are very good in supporting talent and innovation. So I'm sure some kind of competition amongst the states, amongst institutions, will be a natural consequence out of this program in future. With this, I again compliment all the participants, the winners, and as the numbers are growing, I really look forward that more and more of Indian, rural and sub urban areas will also get included in this, apart from the major cities and major institutions. And this program will be, I'm sure, in due course of time, one of the successful ventures which will define India's innovation ecosystem in future. With this, I conclude and thank SOCHM and Ericsson for making me part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Gupta
Gupta.
sir, just wanted to share. You talked about innovation ranking, so I conceptualized it, and yesterday I announced it.
Yeah, that's what I was reading today. I was so impressed and so happy to talk about it, because what when we talk about today is this thing, that is such a pertinent thing. I'm very happy to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Gupta, thanks for truly encouraging words. And we are trying our level best to take IPTSE to next level. In fact, one time thought even came, why don't we have the entire concept in Hindi as well? Because there are so many people who requested for Hindi curriculum, Hindi question and answers, and it is just because of bandwidth. But as we move forward, I'm sure we are going to have more MOUs signed and more support. And on behalf of industry, Mr. Gupta, I would like to really thank you for truly inspiring work that you and your team is doing, because considering the backlogs that are getting cleared, new examiners being hired, IT systems are being upgraded, it is truly a great work. So thank you so much for all of that. And with this, we come to the final note from Safir Anand to give vote of thanks to all our dignitaries.
So hi, good afternoon to everybody. We are in the month of August and I have August company all over the forum. I'd like to start off by thanking firstly all the participants, because we must start with the energy that the youth carries. And it is extremely commendable that all of you have decided to partake in the field of intellectual property, because in you we will find our future thinkers and future leaders. So irrespective of who has won, a big kudos from me for each one of you for participating, and do spread the word around. Intellectual property is not necessarily a function of only winners. Sometimes the best of thinkers are created in partaking and in collaborating and in creating an ecosystem around. So hats off to all of you. I would like to start off by thanking Mr. O.P. Gupta, with whom I've had associations in multiple capacity. The very fact that he leads the trademark patent designs is, is obviously a professional relation that I have as a lawyer who practices, but also the fact that he's inspiring you to think in several ways. I was particularly very happy to hear from his talk, his thoughts on value creation and how sensitive he was about monetization and other areas. And truly, the engineer in him is, the science in him is meeting the commerce, is meeting every single discipline. Mr. Gupta and his team have done an extremely commendable job for the entire ecosystem. India perhaps is at a significant advantage compared to the rest of the world when it comes to the speed at which things are being done and the transparency with which it is being done now with everything happening online. So the ecosystem has got a big boost from the several initiatives taken by him and the entire ministry, and hats off to that. So thank you, sir, for a wonderful inspirational talk to the members today. I love the fact that Dr. Abhay Jere intervened in between to talk about the index. It just shows the enthusiasm that he carries for this subject and the passion that he brings as the Chief Innovation Officer. The Ministry of Education, and as it is now called, and it was revamped just I think a day or two back, itself is a branding exercise. And now in sort of rebranding that exercise to Ministry of Education, there is obviously a greater emphasis that they're going to play in creating an awareness. And we're we have a lot of regard for the wonderful work that the ministry is doing in order to take us to the right path. I'd like to thank Mr. A.K. Mittal as the advisor of TSDSI for a wonderful talk and also for a wonderful initiative that he and the organization are taking in this field. I'd like to thank Ms. Monica Magnuson, the entire team at Ericsson, and I'm going to come to Sheetal later, but the entire team at Ericsson. Intellectual property sometimes needs nurturing. And you need wisdom of somebody to nurture, because you can look at something and you can ignore it, but sometimes when you nurture it and you give it the adequate amount of food and adequate amount of water, you are able to create a very different thought process. The very fact that you have volunteered as an organization to encourage students and to show them the light of this is extremely commendable. And I'm sure that a lot of innovation and a lot of rewards will come out of this. I like to thank Sheetal as the chair of the ASSOCHAM IPR Council and the GM of IPR in Ericsson, and for the extreme amount of hard work that she puts in. There is hardly a meeting where she's not on time, not taking notes, not sending minutes, and not chasing us. It is extremely wonderful to see her passion around the entire field. At the corporate level, I'd like to thank Ericsson, TSDSI, Department of Science and Technology, ASSOCHAM, and the IPTSE for this wonderful initiative. Now, I decided not to talk in a traditional sense. I was supposed to talk in a session on monetization, but I wanted to, steal the thunder and come into this open session because I wanted to talk from my heart. Intellectual property, to me as a practitioner who's completed 25 years in the profession, is something that comes straight from the heart. And I tell my entire team today that the entire role of lawyers is changing. We came into the profession, and Mr. Gupta had already spoken about this earlier, but we came into the profession as lawyers, and we would try and brush up our skills on the legal precedents and the Trademarks Act rules, etc. And we would do our best to argue in courts before the tribunals, etc. But today, the modern lawyer is a thinker. He's a guy who is ancillary to business in every respect. And we created an acronym which is called ROLE, which means Return on Legal Expenses. And today, the role of the lawyer is not going to be confined to just giving advice. He's going to play a big role in creating an ecosystem for a client, for a community, for the country, for a sector, in every respect. I'll give an example. Just 2 or 3 days back, I was reading some Instagram posts that were being put up on the Handloom Day, and you'll be surprised how educated I got by just reading the different kind of handlooms that exist in India. It made me feel so proud in my heart about the fact that I come from a country with such great heritage and such great intellectual property in terms of even these several handlooms. So, I'm a person who's fascinated by reading, and one of the books that has really made a big mark on my life is a book called Value Migration. It was written by a guy called Adrian Slyvotsky, and it talks about how when value migrates into a system from one zone to another zone, a huge amount of increment is created. So the world has gone through an industrial revolution, it has gone through an agricultural revolution, it has gone through .com, it has gone to IT, and in a very symbolic way, we are now at the start of an intellectual property revolution. And that is why anybody who is connected to this field in many ways, and I do not know anybody who is not connected now. Even the most commoditized companies are now looking at intellectual property in some way or the other. So it's a great future for those who partake in it, and not necessarily just the lawyers and the corporates, but even the student community. The world is about differentiation. And in a certain sense, while textbooks tell you multiple definitions of intellectual property, in a true sense, intellectual property is very keenly connected to differentiation. Intellectual property by its very forms, and all forms of intellectual property are not the statutory forms. We have a Trademarks Act, Patent Act, Design Act, Copyright Act, but there are so many intellectual properties that are beyond these acts that come into play. And truly, intellectual property's definition today is about differentiation. At the same time, one of the biggest tools of intellectual property is that it has broken the barriers for a person to become big. A farmer can be sitting in a field with very limited amount of resources, and he can do what is called as, what India calls as jugaad innovation. He can create a community of knowledge. At the same time, a student who is studying in college with very limited pocket money can end up being an innovator. He could be studying, for example, on subsidized money, but he could be an innovator. So since intellectual property is the thought process of the mind and not a process that requires you to buy inventory of steel and cement and all these things, it is a complete change in the entry barrier. And that is one of the reasons why India is now also paying so much of emphasis on medium and small enterprises, because we know that by scaling up these medium and small enterprises, we would be able to create a very smart infrastructure around knowledge and innovation, and eventually around the wealth of the nation. So the first part of intellectual property is the lack of awareness, which somebody should look at. And you'd be surprised that the most sophisticated companies do not know intellectual property. There is massive amount of leakage that happens into the system. And when I say leakage, it doesn't mean leaking out of the company. The fact that when they're innovating, a lot of things get lost into the ecosystem of the company itself, and they're not converted into an end product. Similarly, a lot of people, students, are innovating, but they're not able to take it to an end conclusion. And the creation of multiple collaborative models is a great move that will be able to solve this. So intellectual property is now migrating into this role of collaboration in a big way. And this collaboration is not only by the coming together of many communities to create intellectual property and the support of government, but also through the fact that I could pick up two students from some of those who participated, and together with them nurture and create intellectual property, which is amazing. So that is the spirit of collaboration. And one of the great things I like about IP and is that IP is infinite. Now, if I buy, for example, steel, I can only convert the steel into the value for which I bought. I can similarly only convert cement into the value for which I bought. So the raw material can only have a finite thing. But intellectual property, because it is infinite by its nature, it is intangible. It can go into infinity if it is nurtured well, and therefore it has a huge amount of potential. It is also one of those very rare things where you can have crowdsourcing. So while the technical definition of intellectual property, and as we grew up and we saw intellectual property was more of a property of an individual or of a corporation, but today new forms of intellectual property that are through crowdsourcing and open source codes, etc., are emerging, and those are equally important, and therefore it gives you a lot of ability to do things. Intellectual property is also now embracing across different streams of the corporation itself. For example, earlier a lawyer would have to give an opinion on legal, and he had to say that you can do this or you cannot do this because it is barred under law, and the story was over. But today those opinions are meaningless the opinion has to factor in finance, it has to factor in marketing, branding, timing, social media influence, reaction of public, risk mitigation, corporate governance, etc., etc. And in that sense, a lawyer is becoming much more strategic as opposed to his previous role. Intellectual property has also become global, which is fantastic, because now if you may have a great strategy and you may do a lot for India or the country that you originate from, but you can overlook a lot of riders that may come from globalization and the ability to scale up intellectual property. Intellectual property is attracting the highest amount of taxation. As you would have seen that, the kind of things that are happening on related party transfers and transfer pricing, etc., are very interesting. As Shri Gupta already said, there is a huge migration, and according to the last statistics that I read, 90% of the wealth of the world is now migrated into intangibles. And according to me, this number will only keep going up. See, it's also very advantageous to the world, because intellectual property or intangibles by its nature creates wealth that sustains for the society, as opposed to wealth that sustains for a company. For example, if a technology is good and I use it, of course, the company that brings the technology profits, but later on it creates incentives for competition to look at how to improve the technology, in that sense contribute to the society's benefit and to a lot of innovation on that front. And the last aspect is the monetization aspect, which is now becoming very critical. It is getting due recognition in courts. Damages have set in. It is getting recognition in royalty rates. It is getting recognition in fair disclosures. We used to do licensing and franchising, but now we do sub-licensing and we do cross-licensing. Intellectual property is the only field where two, if I was to call them enemies, actually can collaborate by utilizing their technologies for an end product, which is not what happens in any other product. In any other product, the only kind of collaboration that happens is what gets the competition commission running, because it creates cartels, etc. And the last two points that I want to give before I conclude is that, earlier when we used to look at corporates, we used to look at intellectual property, and you had IP and it was sufficient. And I don't think that the future lies in IP anymore of the kind that I just spoke about. It lies in layers of IP. And some of the smarter businesses are not now creating singular IP, they are creating layers of IP. And just for the benefit of the students, I will take a very simple example, because they will understand this. So I'll take an example of Amazon, because many people shop, for example, in Amazon. So Amazon has a brand which is called Amazon. Amazon has a domain name, which is the website at which they host. They have technology, including patents on the technology, like a single click. They have data, which is extremely valuable, and it is not part of statutory protection, but there is data protection. They have logistics and the way they deliver to you and the control over that, which is also manned by technology. They have a business model which is very unique to them. It is called where they collect the money upfront and then they give the delivery. So they're able to play with what is called as free cash flows. They have a membership program called Amazon Prime. And then they have a very unique model that if they show you a product in the market, which is at say priced at say 100 rupees, and it is available on say another competitor's site at 95 rupees, then they actually put up the banner on Amazon only, telling you to go and buy it at 95 rupees. And we can think that's very silly, because Amazon is asking its customers to go everywhere else. But in putting up the banner, Amazon charges a fee and indirectly profits from that. And at the same time is directed by a very interesting mantra to make everything cheap for its clients. So by making it cheap for its clients and showing the client's focus, it is able to attract more and more people to build a trust and therefore create brand value, which is yet another IP. And as a last point before I conclude, as somebody who's very, very, gung-ho about India and India's prospects over the long term, and I'm a student of economics, so I'll just share this also as a background apart from my law. Most countries in the historic past have measured per capita income. The time has come now to measure per capita IP. And this is where India, with its intelligence, with the kind of system it has demonstrated of its knowledge of science and mathematics and the ability to work hard, have very, very strong rooting in terms of thought processes, should be able to take a lead. So my big thank you to the organizers and for this event and to all the participants, and my best of wishes for everybody for a wonderful future in intellectual property and intangibles. Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Saf. for such a comprehensive thank you note and the suggestions that you made. I think we are running now really late. It's 34 minutes ahead. So I think I just now invite the next, the moderator for the next session, Ms. Pooja from TCS. But I would just make one small announcement. Let's try to divide both the panels into 45 minutes each instead of having one full hour. Because otherwise we will just really go overboard. So I hope it is okay with both the moderators and all the panelists. All right. So Pooja, over to you with this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sheetal. First, I would like to say thanks to all the speakers who have just spoken, and there were really some nice insights, not just for students but for us also who are coming for industry. So without delaying much, I think we will quickly initiate the discussion on the panel. So a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Pooja Khemani and I'm working at TCS as an IP consultant. I will briefly introduce myself. I have 15 years of experience in handling IP, during which I had the opportunity of working with a range of clients and a range of companies and all. Currently, I'm handling IP matters at TCS, and I would be moderating this panel. So I would like to welcome our esteemed panelists for this session, and they are going to share their views, and they are going to deliberate on the topic of opportunities and challenges in evolving innovation landscape. May I request our panelists to please quickly introduce themselves?
Pooja, would you mind if we just skip the introductions because we are running really out of time, and we already have a program copy where title and the name is already given. So maybe you can invite Mr. Mishra for his special address and we get going with the panel.
Oh, okay. So all right. So just to give a brief, we have the panel that we have today is really an interesting panel because people from MNCs, law firms, and academia have joined us. As I said earlier, the topic is very important because the landscape of innovation, which is changing at a tremendous rate today. And we hear some of the unimaginable innovations every day that are happening, especially in the current times, by which I meant pandemic times. There are a lot of companies which are laying off people, big companies, we are laying off people, but then there are, certain startups which are logging profits. Those, for example, which are working in e-commerce space, or, for example, media sharing applications, those of them. So, in addition to that, I would like to mention, as our government's initiative, we heard our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, also, speaking about the initiatives, which includes Atmanirbhar Bharat, Vocal for Local, and Make in India for the World. So when I believe we have a ground set for us, where innovation can breathe. But still, I would like the panelists to deliberate on what they think is the best way of capturing the values of these innovations. So may I request Chitra to share her thoughts on this?
Pooja, I'm so sorry for intervening. I'm extremely sorry because I'm also just acting like organizer. Weren't we to have Mr. Sanjay Mishra's special address first, and then we were to go around as a panelist to deliberate? As per the program copy, yes. So I think we should formally invite Sanjay ji for his special address first.
Sure.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I think, first of all, I will extend my thanks to the organizers, particularly the SOCHM and Ericsson and Ministry of the MSME, to organize this program. And it's a special day for me for two reasons. One, let me put it this way, because this concept was already taken by the Ericsson SOCM last year, and they've already started this national talent, intellectual property search examination. And when we discuss, because I come from the Department of Science and Technology, and we also run several programs. And when I met Sheetal and the SOCM team, and then we decided to partner. So first of all, I'm very happy for the reason because with the SOCM team and Sheetal, that what we discussed last year, now the Department of Science and Technology is partner with the program. Is again, I will reiterate that even in the future endeavors, wherever we wish to support, inculcate, and provide the seeding effect to the new generation, the DST will be with SOCM, with you, with in all the programs in future also. So that is the first point. Now I was listening the program since the afternoon, and a lot of things has been discussed. So I will not go into the various aspects where the India is going, the innovation policy, then the startup policy, and things are carried by the different organs of the government of India. Now, I would like to just bring a few, small, I will put up just a sparks to the audience and to the panelists, that what the DST or the science ministries are involved, and that will give under the umbrella, because my department is primarily into the human resource development, because DST invariably our 80% of time goes to the providing support to the various IITs, universities, and in some cases to school children. So all my discussion, all my my presentation is towards the development of the good quality human resources for future innovators, for future innovations, for future IP specialists. So that is a broad area where I'll try to bring in your notice a few of the developments. So first, as some of you are aware, but some of you may not be aware, the Department of Science and Technology runs a program. It's called Manak program, Inspire Manak program, and the idea behind the program is to create and to reward, is to scout novel ideas. And I'm very proud to say that perhaps in my understanding, this is the only scheme of the Department of Science and Technology, maybe the government, where a student, I repeat, a school student is rewarded only for the ideas. No action is required, no prototype is required, no model is required. If you have a novel, innovative idea, which should have, of course, certain parameters, it should be based on science and technology, it should have a value for society, it should be eco-friendly, environment-friendly. Anyway, so based on that, this Manak program has been running in the department from last, I think, 9 years in different forms, different shapes, and different, categories. So in the last year, the department has received 3.8 lakh novel ideas from roughly 2 lakh schools in India. So this is I'm just trying to say 2 lakh schools in India they have participated, and because every school is supposed to provide names and details and bank details and their ideas, about 2 to 3 students. So that translated roughly 4 lakh ideas. But I must tell you that still my job is hard, because my target is to have 1 million ideas and to connect about 600,000 schools, which India has roughly, where the students can study from class 6 to class 10. Anyway, so right now I'm operating at the 30% level. Now coming back, the reason for my association was that under the Manak program, we simply, it's a kind of a crowdsourcing. We simply ask the student to provide their ideas, and there is a web, there is a portal where the school principal has a login password. They put their ideas, then I take the help of the IITs and the Innovation Foundation, and we look at the merit of ideas, and then the reward by putting 10,000 rupees in direct benefit transfer to the student's account. So 10,000 rupees is given to each and every idea by the Department of Science and Technology, so that the student can convert the idea into model or some kind of prototype, or to the next level, whatever is feasible. And then there is a district level competition across India, So all the students that come to the district level, then there is exhibition, and we select 10% best ideas. Then we move to the state level, again we select 10%, we come to the national level. So these are the three layers, that is where the program is being operational. Now, with this program, this IP resources which were developed by the SOCM for this program, and also the competition, we have tried to connect the Manak programs, roughly 2 lakh schools which are already on board, with this scheme. So this is a hybrid model. That is what we thought. But last year, when we talked, when we decided, it was a bit late, so we could not operationalize. I think we have got few thousand schools, but probably this year we expect to move. So that was the background that why I'm here and why the DST is interested into this part. Now, the second thing is just to give you another aspect, another idea, that Department of Science and Technology has started a patent facilitation unit in the TIFEC way back in 1995. So that was basically a one cell where the patent facilitation and the support in terms of IP, because I'm talking about 95, that was started. And since then, just to give a very brief thing, that all over states in India, roughly 26 states, and every state has got a science council. The department has already funded and formulated a IP cell in our state councils in every state. So we have got 26 IP centers or IP councils within the state government one, because this is a kind of a capacity building for the state government. As you know, that DST or TIFEC sitting in Delhi, we cannot have those kind of a licensing and connection. So we have done that, is the second part. And the third part is, apart from these two programs, we also, just to take care, one of the divisions we have already funded, I think roughly more than 500 startup and innovator centers or accelerator centers in different IITs, different universities. And right now, I think because we fund for 5 years, then we move to the next level. So right now we have got about 200 plus functional business accelerator centers in the academic institutions. And coming, it's very interesting that Gupta ji pointed out that the Ministry of Education will start a scholarship or fellowship for the students who wish to come to the innovation field, and there is a risky business. So I'm happy to inform that since last year, Department of Science and Technology has already started a program which is called a residence, innovator in residence kind of program, where a IIT graduate or an IM graduate, especially coming out of the Central University, if they have got if they've got incubation center, the DST provides them, of course, 30,000 rupees per month as a fellowship, scholarship, whatever you call sustenance, for a year or two, so that the student come and take care and take forward into the their startup trajectory, so they can do this job. So I'm just trying to say these are the three broad areas where Department of Science and Technology has been functioning. Manak program through the schools where we promote innovation, and second is your innovation startup accelerator programs at different academic institutions, engineering colleges. So with these backgrounds, the department is very happy to have this SOCM and this partnership. Now, coming back to the another program which is I believe many of you are aware, but some of you may not be aware. So I think it's good that the DST has also started a program where we select. It's very interesting. I think that is one of the unique in the world, if I can think of, where we allow only the women scientists who have a break in their career of 2 years or more, and they come through a competition, and we provide them an IP training, an IP internship for 11 months to 1 year. So in other words, like last year, we have done an entrance examination, and we have selected 120 women scientists. It's a women scientist program, and all these 120 women scientists who are selected in the program, they are given 1 month of a theoretical classroom-based basic fundamental training in TIFEC and IIT Delhi, and we invite the resource persons from all over India. One of the best people, they come from industry, academia, from patent office. We invite them and give them the grounding, because most of these women scientists are either PhD or MSc or MTech. So they are pretty, highly qualified into science, but may or may not have an idea about IP or law. So in the first month, they are giving the theoretical, like a solid background, and then they are placed under either a patent attorney or in like institution like IIT or CSIR, where you have a patent where you have patent cell or maybe patent office. So similar, they are placed on job kind of a internship training program. And Department of Science and Technology pays a, I think last year it has been increased to 30,000 per month as a stipend for all those women scientists who participate in the program. Now, I'm very glad to say that, to the best of my knowledge, they've got more than 700 or maybe 800 women scientists who have graduated from this program in last 7 to 8 years. And I think more than 200 they have qualified this patent examination also. So I believe there are 10% of the women scientists and women patent examiners who have graduated from this DST program. And I understand that many of you are aware of that. So with these programs, you can imagine that how DST has been passionately and proactively involved into generating the high quality manpower. I must say women power, not the manpower, because we provide the women power also. And here, Sheetal is also one of the, alumni of this DST program. So you can see many of them have rose to the level of the partner in their companies. Many have become to the different levels. So with this background, I think the DST has been doing and DST will be doing in future in the promotion of these things. Now, overall picture, just a few points to reiterate that, yes, we are fully aware that the time has changed. As many speakers have, initially told that if you look at the trajectory or the life cycle, normally like admission, there's a teaching, then you do research work. And in India, if you see, we've become third or fourth ranking in terms of the research output. Research output is generally in terms of the paper publication, journal paper publication. Now, not all research output becomes an IP. And I believe maybe less than 1% has that potential to become IP. That is the higher level of the research. So some of the research will come into the IP level. And again, that you file the IP, you have a patent or copyright or design. Now, some of them will come into the market. So again, it's a filtering process. Now, till now, the department has been focusing a lot more into this publication thing, where India is standing is reasonably good. But IP has been, as I said earlier, that with these 3 programs we have been working. But in coming years, we will be putting much more focus into these areas. For example, I think just to share with you, for these women scientists, right now we produce every year roughly 100 women scientists who come into this IP profession. Now, in next 5 years, department has planned and approved programs and budget also to make this 100 number into 200 number. So at the roughly in 2025, DST will be supporting approximately 200 women scientists to have this program of the IP, the training program, the stipend program. And one more element which the department has already been working, which we are in touch with the SOCM also and the TIP also, that apart from this program, which is a basic entry-level program, the DST is very keen to support a few, maybe 3 or 4 fellowships to generate the scholarship into IP. Like for PhD program, from going abroad, having 6 months, 3 months, short-term courses, which are much higher level, not at the entry level. So that is also into the pipeline. So these are the programs which is in DST's plan. And coming back to the students, I'm very happy that we have got 3 colleges, and these 3 the colleges and the students who are rewarded, who are given award of this program, and I wish them good luck for good future. And the one more point which I listened, which I have noted down, I'll take care with the help of the SOCM, that I think the time has come when we need to put certain aspects of the IP into the curriculum at the level of the school, +2 level and at BTech level. DST will be happy to license to have these things done, at least at the central government level and also at the AICTE level and different IITs and different universities level, because that will be another job which I have taken, which I have noted and will take care in the future. So with these words, again, I extend my thanks to the organizers, and and I wish extremely good luck and all my support for this national this program of the IPTSE program, and where the ASSOCHAM and the team and the Ericsson has been working on that. So thank you very much from the Department of Science and Technology with best wishes.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for walking us through the initiatives that DST is working on. In fact, I can personally vouch for the Kiran scheme, where you might be aware for last couple of years, TCS has been hiring, taking in women scientists from the Kiran scheme. They get trained with TCS for a year, and then they are getting absorbed. So the quality, I must say. The people, the women scientists who are joining us, I must say they are turning out very well in IP domain. Yeah.
Very
So
good, very good. It's very interesting. I mean, it's very interesting because I also head the Kiran division. So I have a double cap in DST. I take care of MANE program for the children, and also I head the Women in Science program, Kiran. So here, it's a golden opportunity, and I look forward from TCS. How do I improve this Kiran program, especially this IP, and so that we can move the higher level? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for your inputs. So I think, so Sheetal, I think we can do a quick time check. How much time we are left with?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer.
So
we are already
what
done
we
with our
can,
time, but maybe 30 more minutes, not more than that.
So we'll try to wind up fast, because it's an interesting panel, and we have an interesting set of panelists who are going to share their inputs. So a request to the panelists, maybe we can keep our comments short and try to wind it up in another 30 minutes time.
Yeah, I'll be happy to preclude myself as panelist and give my time to others, because I've already spoken, so I have no worries on that. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you very much. So, so as I was saying, now that ground is set in India for innovation, with government also supporting us, and a lot of innovators at every nook and corner of the country, they are coming up. What I would like to understand, what our panelists thinks is the best way of capturing the value of these innovations. Innovations is one thing, but then how do we capture the value of these innovations so as to keep our innovators motivated? We can look at the perspective from MNCs. Maybe Chitra and Sudipta can throw some light on how MNCs are playing a role in the growth of these local innovators and the local innovators.
So, okay, I just go ahead. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, thank you so much, Pooja, for the intro. Thank you, Sheetal, for organizing this wonderful session. Before I go into the topic of what we thought of talking today, I really wanted to applaud Mishra ji and Dr. O.P. Gupta for this, because there's so much country, that the Kiran initiative. In fact, we hired a few people from that, the Kiran team as well, and they are doing extremely well. So last 2-3 years, we hired quite a few interns from there, and I think it's really nice to see what the government is doing. So for today's panel, I think, we have a set of people who are very, very, who already know this, but I'm going to talk a bit on the perspective of students or the younger generation who are going to be listening to us. I just wanted to talk a little bit on, the key. So a lot is happening very well. We totally recognize and appreciate that the efforts being put on are huge. In terms of hiring examiners and so, but there is always this question that we keep hearing that MNCs are filing a lot more and local industry should do a lot more. So the question is, MNCs are filing 80 to 90%, and then there's the gap from the local innovators. It's quite often we find that although people are getting trained on drafting, filing, prosecution, we see a huge gap in the quality of the patents. I've been talking about it quite often, the quality of claims that go in, because it's not just important to file a patent, it's also important to make it enforceable, so that when these startups or these companies, they go forward to monetize it, the IP, we are having a good set of very, very enforceable patents. That's one side of it. The other thing is also about enforceability in itself. As a country, we need to be looking at how do we make enforcement easy, make it for MNCs, but also for the local companies to get, allow people to get a maximum out of their IP. I just had a couple of other points to talk about in terms of what we could do as a country. One is the trade secret protection, because we're entering more and more into the software realm where everything is AI based, and we all know that to have a strong IP, it also has to be detectable. So not everything is fileable as a patent. There are some things that are kept as trade secrets, and we need to find ways to incentivize or to make sure that these trade secrets are protected well. The frameworks to protect them well. That has to be have some thought. And my other most important thought for today's discussion was on IP collateralization, because yes, we're doing a lot in terms of giving incentives to startups to file. There's a fee reduction in place. There's a lot we're doing to incubate before us. But what happens after that? What happens after these companies come out? They make these startups, they file an IP. What happens to the IP? So when the startup is there, they usually struggle between funds, funds for setting up their own marketing, or should they spend money for filing patents? So there's always a debate. But if we can say that patent application, there are ways that you can still monetize, we are going to really up their level of success in that sense. So there are of course, this cannot be seen in isolation, because there are various provisions in the Indian laws that have to be looked in totality. One is that the banking aspects of it. How are banks equipped to offer collateral? I don't think they can offer that easily. There are checks in the Banking Act. There are things in the Sarfaraz Act, as you know, and then there are also other issues that we need to look from the Patent Act in themselves to make sure that we are offering a conducive environment where when these startups come up with IP, they also have a way to take it forward in terms of getting loans and getting the maximum out of the invention and efforts. So I'll stop here. I mean, if there's still time, then I can continue, but I would like to also let the other panelists an opportunity to speak their views. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chitra, for sharing your thoughts. May I invite Nishant? Nishant, would you like to share some of the perspectives from a lawyer's point of view, wherein you can talk about the factors which India as a market and as IP regime is doing, where because of which India is still a market for foreign investors. Can you talk something on that?
Right. So, first of all, thank you, everyone, and welcome to this session. It's very enlightening listening to all of you. I'll just say I'll keep it short. India, as a legal system, it has a boast of a very robust legal system. We have a court system which is independent. There's no influence bias that the courts exercise in dealing with any type of applicant or any type of litigant that's there. And this is one thing that I believe makes India a jurisdiction which many foreign companies are now exploring for enforcing their IP rights. There may be some bias that is exercised towards local versus foreign entities. And I believe this would go a long way in attracting foreign MNCs, foreign companies to India. There have been few efforts from the government's end. I would really applaud those efforts. Something like the PLI scheme that has been recently launched, which in a way promotes the local manufacturing in India. Some incentives are being provided to companies, and not only Indian companies, even foreign companies are establishing their manufacturing bases in India so as to take benefit of those schemes. So I think this would also go a long way in bringing in more manufacturing, and promote the Make in India program. One thing which I believe we may have to work upon better enforcement of our legal provisions. India boasts of somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000 legislations. We have legislations for each and everything, I believe, in India. But unfortunately, enforcement is at times a bit slow. You get results at a very slow pace at times, and that is a bit of an area where the government and courts need to look into, so as to make India more lucrative for foreign investments and foreign companies to come to India. And I think it would also help the startup ecosystem, because startups also I have been developing a lot of IP, and all they need is a better protection system for their IPs. Yeah.
Thank you
That's it
for
from
sharing
my
your thoughts, Nishant. Yeah, I too concur with the fact that there are legislations, but then the enforceability is a challenge in many areas. Next, probably we can hear from Dr. Tabriz. So, since Dr. Tabriz, you are coming from an academia, background. And we have students on as participants for the session. We would like to know what could be the possible collaborations, amongst the academia, the startups, and maybe the bigger organizations for so that we can capture the value of innovation better.
Thank you, Pooja, for very nice coordination. Also, I thank the DST and Socham and also the Ericsson for organizing a great program. And I was hearing all the speakers. So it is nice to see that country, and we are really trying very hard to bring the mobilizing the entire resources to bring the kind of thought process, and also invite people and also engage them to have more innovation and more IPR development. If you see the Indian story, in fact, if you see the patent per million status of India, it is hardly 35, and where the 289 is USA and 890 is Japan. So if you see individual wise patent per million, we are very low level, keeping in mind the Japan and the USA. It means that as a person individual, everybody is not very innovative. It also says a lot about our education system, how we are actually promoting the research, how we are recognizing the research. It means that engaging the students from the very early stage is great effort by these groups. Because it's the right time to catch the talent and also try to mobilize them the research innovation. As a country, we are more concerned about the jobs and jobs. We became a copycat. Just we are thinking about to get a job. We are not thinking about the innovation level to create something very new. So that we have to really change. It starts from the school level, that we have to make everybody very creative, very innovative. Unless we recognize this kind of thing, we cannot fight globally, because now IPR has become a global issue, and any country who are really leading on the research development and trying to have more on IPRs, and also trying to export IPR, because see, American economy, 50% exports the IPR. So it means that all the top class quality products mostly belong to USA, all the top class medicines, software programs, mobile technology. Why? Because they have taken a lot of efforts to come to this level. And I'm very happy to see that India is going very nicely in a very structured way to go to that level. In this process, the universities can play a great role, because at university level, you see, we have a lot of PhDs awarded, but how many PhDs are converted to kind of the patent grants or kind of the publication level? It is very less, because people will do PhD just to get a degree and just to get a kind of the faculty in university. They are not doing PhD to create new knowledge or trying to convert in a patent and then commercialize. So next aspect is the commercialization part, that once something is awarded as an IPR, and then next level is how to commercialize. This way, industry and the academia, the universities can collaborate. So all the good work produced by the universities can taken by the industry and they can commercialize. This way, if we can really have very good collaboration between the school, university, and industry, and then we can create a very good ecosystem in the country. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts, Dr. Tabriz. Yeah, I understand, for collaboration opportunities between academia and the startups, it is there has to be certain legislations in place where the startup is also more confident on what loans they can get, how they can commercialize their inventions. So next, I would like to invite Shuchi to get a startup perspective from her on this issue, since she is dealing with a lot of startup day in, day out. So Shuchi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pooja. Thank you, Asochan and Erickson for having me on the panel. I actually concur with whatever Mr. Gupta and my co-panelists have so far spoken about. I think India is in an interesting phase where we are positioned from things moving very slow to picking up pace. But at the same time, yes, while we have mended our, I would say, prosecution procedures to some extent, with more scope of improvement, but it's heartening to see the pace. I think enforcement is somewhere where we need to work more. And largely more so from the perspective that there is always a difference between writing a claim and writing an enforceable claim, so that it can stand the test of times in the courts. I deal with a lot of startups which approach me, and this I would say is not limited to any particular domain in technology, but spanning from biotechnology to electronics, etc. as part of this. I do feel that there are a lot of things that India has worked are very positive as of today, but still there are things that as a country we should also consider for the startups as of today. So largely, if I have to categorize inventions, there are two types of inventions. We either talk about breakthrough or we talk about inventions. Breakthroughs are really clear where you are able to get granted for that. There's enough support that you can use and go ahead with. But I think India as a country is largely banking upon, and as we see more of the startup ecosystem building up, on this innovation or incremental innovations which are coming up, which are maybe something in colloquial language we could say, jugaad inventions. In that aspect, I think as a country, if we look at a protection, which may be something like an innovation patent or a petty patent, as it's called in some of the countries in the West, that could be a very, very good starting point for us, because not every invention that is being brought by a startup is something that is. It is something where they have used the existing infrastructure, existing technology, and come up with an out-of-box solution, which largely would qualify as an incremental innovation and not really a breakthrough. So having a regime or a regulation or a sui generis act that could provide them with something, and these are generally short-lived because they tend to phase out very, very radically. Maybe 5 years, 6 years is the lifespan of such things. A short duration protection for such inventions is something I think startups would largely benefit. Second thing which I think previous to me, some of the people did attend is also something that I talk about is the database protection. We are a data economy today. The world largely is one. So we need to protect for sure the way people are coming up in very innovative fashion, putting together different databases. Now, database might look like something which is very simple, putting different information pieces of data together, but essentially the task of mining, getting the data together and arranging it in a particular form is something that needs a lot of protection. To some extent, if you can show some sort of a technical advancement there, they may qualify as patents, but again, largely they're unprotected because even copyright, the threshold for you to get a protection against this is originality, which is very high. And largely at times, the startups do suffer in not being able to get protections for their own data. Yet, a last point that I would like to touch upon based upon my interactions, like I said, we have a lot of startups in, let's say, jugaad or out-of-box areas, services sector. They come up with beautiful, absolutely conceptualized, amazing user interfaces which seek out what they have thought of and what they're going to contribute. In India today, we have no protections available for them where we could say that they could go ahead and protect a user interface which speaks about what they're going to do. The best they can do is apply for a copyright of the source code and the object code. And to that extent, they have an inherent protection to the user interface. Unlike in US, where you have the user interfaces as protected under their design regime. So I think if we can also consider as a nation that we can extend protection and support our startup ecosystem, this will go a long way in empowering them. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Of course, yeah, of course, I understand. I mean, whatever points you made for startup, these are very, very. There is some echo, I think. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I was saying
But
that
there's some echo at times. There's
some
echo.
echo.
I think it is just going on auto mute again and again. So that's what the beep is.
So, Shuchi, the points that you brought about with respect to the startups are very relevant, and not just startups, even companies like us, we are facing these issues where, there is a new UI that comes and it becomes difficult to patent that UI in India, while, countries like US, they are, open to having a patent on it. So thank you
I
for sharing.
completely agree.
Yeah. So I would now invite
Housekeeping
Deepika
announcement,
to
Pooja.
there is
Just a
one
small housekeeping announcement. I think everyone else will have to go on mute. Organizers are trying to mute you all, whoever is not speaking, but that's the reason why it's echoing. So just keep checking your mic.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. So I would now invite Sudipta to share his thoughts on the same topic. Sudipta comes from a MNC background, and in today's technological innovation era, where a lot of inventions are happening in AI and ML, which again falls into the category of either mathematical models or software or a combination of both. So Sudipta, you want to share your inputs or your thoughts on like how are we going to deal with these innovations, considering the laws and enforcement that we have today in India? Hello.
Pooja, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible now.
Am I audible, Pooja?
Yeah, you are audible now.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for organizing this event. So, with regards to AI, I would share two key aspects. So, one is the patentability aspect, and also a little bit on the regulation related aspects. So, as most of us know that AI deals with systems which are built using some algorithm, and algorithms are not patentable subject matters. And with open source widely being used in order to develop these kind of systems, I'm talking about both larger companies as well as startups and smaller SMEs. So where is the differentiator? So differentiator may be slightly changing it or adapting it for the purpose, and then training that model to create a particular behavior of the system. And there are new things which are also coming. So one is that how do you prepare the training data? Next is another aspect which has come is towards the output side of it, that is something called explainable or verifiable AI systems. So which are actually required for practical purposes. I mean, when an AI system is used in public service or even otherwise, there are certain things which require to be maintained, like ethical standards, and then transparency, equality, and there are some of the other things. So if you look at an AI system, it is like a black box. Once the training data is fed in during the training process, the weightages gets adjusted within the system, but no one can predict that. So it is unpredictable. So if you look at patent provisions, patent provision section 3K, and it says that the method are not patentable subject matters or algorithms. Next is mere a rule or method for performing mental act or method of playing games. So these are also not subject matter for patent. Inventive state is a big hurdle in establishing patentability of AI systems, because it does not follow, specific steps, but the invention happens the way the system is configured. And that is also not clearly transparent. So So I mean, it is difficult to establish how to this thing. So many. I would suggest, I mean, based on my experience, that we look for peripheral part of the system apart from the algorithm and the model. What we are doing to make it inventive, because the same model is used by 1,000 people or maybe millions of people. But question is how we are configuring it for specific purpose. So that could be one of the aspects that one can look at for patentability. Next is sufficiency of disclosure, which is section 25(2)(g), which is also another aspect that needs to be very clearly defined. So from the patentability point of view, these are some of the aspects. The other aspects of AI systems are how do you get the training data? So there are, GDPR in place and there are privacy laws in place. And AI systems essentially do classification and, what should I say, that identification of individuals or a class of individuals. It could be an entity, a living entity, or even otherwise. So the act of this classification itself can be discriminatory in nature. So those, though there are no specific regulations right now, there are few, rights that is there for individuals, is right for explanation. And then also there is a Consumer Financial Protection Act or Bureau in US, which tries to enforce, AI regulation to some extent. But if you see in, recent future AI regulations are going to come. UNESCO is already working on a draft for, instrument for setting standards for ethical and other aspects of artificial intelligence. Then the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe has conducted and published a study of artificial intelligence for and freedom of speech, how it hampers the freedom of speech and how it influences. Individual countries, I'm sure that they are working in the on these. But as a business organization, we are also developing different frameworks to assess AI systems. For example, Wipro has developed one framework called Ethica framework, which is part of our HOMES platform, HOMES AI platform. So this is to assess other AI systems for certain ethical and many other aspects. The expected standards which is required by the AI operator. So these are some of the points. Briefly, we can talk for hours, but I think these are some of the big points wanted to communicate.
Yeah. Thank you, Sudipta, for summarizing it quickly, because we have a time crunch. And as you rightly said, with though a lot of past policies, the past policy that has come, a lot of things have been ironed out with respect to software inventions. We probably still need to look into the specific classification of it, which is AI ML related inventions. I would just summarize this panel where we all the panelists, they are of the view that with government initiatives that have come recently in terms of the revised IP policy, a lot of positive steps have been taken to ease the IP protection process in India. Startups have been given a lot of leverages, where even I saw a few days back a startup got a patent granted within less than a year's time, of course at the minimal cost than what usually it could be. And so a lot of positive steps are being taken. However, as panelists mentioned, certainly there are some more things, where if we ease out the process, it will be helpful for the startups, the grassroots level inventors, and even the students who are trying to innovate something. There will be encouragement for them as well. Certain things, for example, IP collateralization, which will be very important, has been brought by one of the panelists. Then patenting of certain categories, for example, UIs, that should be patented. How to protect the data, because the training data, as you said, is one of very important things. When we talk about AI and ML inventions, and there can be multiple ways of generating that data which inventors may want to protect. And then other such things. So utility models is one of the things which is prevalent in certain countries. However, looking at the kind of inventions that are coming in India, and that might come, it is good to consider that aspect as well. Now, in the end, I would just like to say, that innovation doesn't happen overnight. This is specifically for, the student community that is there with us today. Someone spoke about, Amazon, which is a great example when it comes to innovation. They have every year, I mean, they think of things which, they implement things which we can't even think. So why is that? So someone once spoke to Jeff Bezos, and he was and what he told was that the innovation that we are implementing today, we conceived it at least a decade back. So they think at least 10 years back before really coming up with implementing such things, which means that today if we are trying to innovate something, then we need to think at least 10 years down the line to see how those things can be implemented. So with this, I rest the discussion on the panel, and thank you. I thank all the panelists for providing excellent inputs. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sheetal.
Thank you.
And great set of panelists you have. Very well done on time. Just last few words, I think, because I still see 5 minutes. So I think one of the biggest thing is that the convergence and the stable environment and the predictable environment that all investors and the IP users community wish to see. And that is possible when, not only within internally the companies within different departments, they coordinate with each other, but also different government departments, they coordinate with each other before producing any policy intervention, any policy discourse. Because usually what happens is that the effort done by one ministry, the true letter and spirit of what has been done, inadvertently is overdone by somebody else, in light of sector specific issues. So I think more coordination is required from both the ends, not only from the government, but also within the company, where you coordinate with your own internal set of teams to give holistic viewpoint when it comes to policy, but same from the other side as well. So I think we should end the panel with the final note. Thank you so much, everyone. And I would now like to invite the moderator for the next session, Urban Fjolestad from Ericsson, and his panelists, and also Mr. N.R. Meena for the special address. So over to you, Urban.
Thank you so much, Sheetal. That's great. Thank you so much for inviting me. I would, of course, have preferred, as was the case last year, to be on site in Delhi, meeting everyone, but this is clearly lots better than not meeting at all. So thank you all for joining. Now, we've heard a number of times now we're a little bit pressed for time. We'll obviously do our best to keep within the framework. And so maybe I will. So the title of this second panel, as you've seen, IP market expansion, needing a robust IPR ecosystem. I think that's something we can all subscribe to, and we've heard lots of points to that effect also already today. But before I introduce the panel a little bit more, I would just like to ask Mr. Meena to give his special address so that we start off on the right foot, if you please.
Thank you very much, Faisalist. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So thank you very much, all the speakers. And I am here. First of all, I would like to thank SOCHAM and Ericsson to organize such a nice program and invite me as a speaker for addressing to give the special address for this event. I would like to tell you about the steps taken by the government to promote IP in India. Various steps has been taken to increase the transparency in the system by the government of India and Office of Control General of Patent Design and Trademark. For example, we introduced online e-filing of the patent applications. Any person, any inventor, any applicant can file his application via e-filing as on today in the patent office. To encourage the e-filing or online filing, there is a fee deduction, 10% fee deduction is given to the applicant for filing of the online filing. Number two, the applications can be transferred electronically from one office to another patent office. Once the application has been filed by the applicant, it has been screened by a group of officers and examiners. This examination belongs to which field? Suppose this one example I would like to say you. Suppose the field of application belongs to chemical. So it is reallocated, assigned to an examiner which belongs to chemical field. There is no, maybe the application filed in Delhi Patent Office, but it may be allocated in the examiner who is posted in Chennai Patent Office, and his controller may be posted in Kolkata Patent Office. So this is the great advantage. We can transfer the file after filing the patent office to an officer who is sitting in the Chennai Patent Office, Mumbai Patent Office, and Kolkata Patent Office, and Delhi Patent Office. And his controller also can sit in another location. Special provision for startup applications, we can provide, the government provide 90%, about 90% fee deduction for the startups. If a startup file an application with the patent office, the 90% fee reduction rebate may be the startup particularly. And another, the government can provide the technical support, and to provide, there is a panel recognized by the government of India. The startup can select any person to take the legal advice filing, and there may be startup 1,000 rupees at the time of filing of the patent application, and 10,000, another 10,000 payment will be given to the startup at the time of final disposal of the application. So these are the advantages for a startup. Another aspect is the expedited examination on certain grounds. Startup and selected India as a ISA and IPA. And refund of RQ fees. Earlier, it was not done by the patent office. Once the applicant file a request for examination fee before the patent office, it was not refundable. But now the patent office is refund the fee after filing of the applicant. And also, there is a no fees for withdrawal of the application. There is a provision in the patent office. Any person can make a request to withdraw his application before the publication. And earlier there was a fees, 4,000 rupees fees. But now any person, any applicant can withdraw his application without paying the fees. So these are the important steps which has been taken by the government. The another important step is the applicant can see the status of the application on website. Each and every information is available on the IPO website in a transparent manner. There is a facility to log in free. Any person can log in freely on the website and see the status of application, whether the application is published or not, whether the application is granted or not, whether the FER has been issued by the patent office or not. So these type of facilities is available on the patent office website. The another is free public search facility is also available on the website, and Indian Patent Advanced Search System in PASS is also you can see on the patent office website. And dynamic utility of patent search. You can search your application on the patent office website. Email communication to the applicant. Now FER, first examination report, has been issued by the patent office and it will be communicated to the applicant or agent via email. Earlier it was communicated by in a physical form, but now we can communicate easily without wasting the paper to the applicant via email. And SMS alert facility is also we have created. When an application filed before the patent office by the applicant, an SMS alert is given to the applicant. Just like a bank, when we withdraw the money from ATM, we get the SMS alert from the bank side. Similarly, when an applicant file a patent application, we give them to the SMS alert. Also, at the time of generation of the first examination report, we give the SMS alert to the applicant. And at the time of grant of application, when the patent certificate generated by the controller in the patent office, an SMS alert is automatically go to applicant or agent. The another important step has been taken by the patent office and office of CGPDTM is hearing via video conferencing. Now no physical hearing is allowed in the patent office. All hearings under section 14, under section 25, under section 25(2) also, which can be taken by the controller online video conferencing. So this is a great facility to an applicant who is sitting in the Chennai and Bangalore and Mumbai also. So no need to come in the patent office. Suppose the controller is sitting in the Delhi patent office and applicant and agent is sitting in the Bangalore. So they can appear before the controller via video conferencing at the time of hearing. Another is cross-location examination. As I have, the cross-location examination is also available. Location examination means an examiner sitting in the Chennai can examine the application to the controller sitting in the Delhi. So this is the great facility which has been created and developed by the Office of Controller General of Patent Design and Trademark. Another step is task force to ensure the quality of the patent applications as well as the disposal of the applications. We have created a task force and we have created a cell which is known as the quality control cell, and we have a group of officers there, and they can take a random sample after examination of the application, and they can see whether the quality of the application examined by the examiner is up to the mark or not. If there is no up to the mark, then the group is told to the examiner to further improve and suggest to another improvement of the field of technology. And the great achievement and step I can say to spread the awareness among the country. The Controller General Office is conducted every year lot of awareness programs with the industry associations like FICCI, CII, SOCM, PhD chambers, ICC, and CWI. So we have conducted a lot of awareness programs like universities and startup, innovation center, MSMEs, and enforcement agencies. So in last 3 years, I will give you the figure. In last 3 years, the Office of Controller General of Patent, Design and Trademark has conducted 135 awareness programs for MSME, universities, and startups and enforcement agencies in different locations in the country, in association with the industry associations. And about 173 awareness programs has been organized by the Office of CGPDTM in schools. So this is the new experiment. This was the new experiment we have taken up in last 3 years, and we have organized very successful programs, 173 awareness programs in schools for the students. And we have selected the schools who have the adult tinkering laboratories. So about 173 schools, about 73 schools we have selected that have the adult tinkering laboratories. And I will tell you about in brief the examination request for examination which we are dealing with in the examination, in the field of examination in different technology. In the field of chemistry, we are examining the examination application. The request for examination has been filed in the month of April 2020. So I can say there is no pendency for the examination sector in the chemistry field as well as in the biotechnology field. We are examining the biotechnology applications where the request for examination has been filed in the month of April 2020 also. And in the mechanical field, we are examining the application March 2022, where the request for examination filed in the month of March 22. And electrical and electronic groups, we are examining about the request for examination filed in the month of June 2019. We are a little bit late in the electrical and electronic groups. And we are also expedite the disposal of the applications as well as the pendency. We are trying to clear the pendency regarding the pre-grant opposition and post-grant opposition filed with the patent office. So on these words, I would like to conclude my session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Meena. That's a great introduction. Now, you may have read in the introduction to the panel in the agenda Stronger intellectual property rights seem to encourage foreign direct investment in production and R&D. And equally, or even maybe more importantly, it also encourages domestic innovation. And given the enormous resources, the huge high-tech industry in India, it really comes as no surprise that India aims to be a leader in IP and innovation. And we've heard many words to that effect today. In fact, when you read some of the language from schemes like Creative India, Innovative India, the government puts a lot of stress on IP. For example, it says that with India's potential and its importance in the global arena, it's time we rise and become a leader in innovation and intellectual property. And that ambition is very clear to me. Since the release of the 2016 National IPR Policy, there's been many focused efforts by the government to support investments in innovation and creativity through increasingly robust IP protection and enforcement. And clearly things are moving in the right direction. And the result can also be seen in, for example, the Global IP Index, where India's ranking has steadily improved. Now, having said that, there's always room for improvement, I'd say, and I think I'm hoping to hear some suggestions for that on the panel today. Indian youth is obviously a key focus group for us. They are the inventors of the future. They are the ones who will come up with tomorrow's technology innovations. And the IPTSE activities aimed at the students of the Indian school system is one way to try to address this group. Those of us gathered today are all supporters of this. But I'd like to now get some views and understand the confidence level that the panelists have of the current Indian IP ecosystem and what sort of further improvements you'd like to see. I might, as was suggested to the previous panel, not go through everyone. Your names and titles are, of course, in the agenda. So maybe I'll just start by turning to you, Hemang. So Dr. Hemang Shah, co-chair of ASSOCHAM IPR Council and senior IPR engineer at Qualcomm. You work a lot with tech startups. And as the upcoming members of India's IP ecosystem, what are some observations about tech startups in India that you can share with us?
Thank you, Urban. And firstly, thanks all to ASSOCHAM, to Meena for setting such a wonderful context. Opi Gupta ji and everyone else who gave a very good outline. Urban, you're truly correct that the youth are going to be a very important part of India's IP ecosystem. I lead Qualcomm's startup incubation program in the country, and I've been a part of this program since we launched it in 2016. Now, we launched it with a very simple idea that the world thinks of India as a big powerhouse when it comes to, say, software, and it truly is so, right? We've made very good progress over there. What the world also doesn't know, or what is not marketed as much, is that we have tremendous talent when it comes to hardware ecosystem also. And when it comes to say the technology which is changing our world, for example, right now every one of us is dialing on a remote basis. It's our devices which are making this happen. So when it comes to the electronics industry or the IoT industry, there is a tremendous amount of scope when it comes to product design and development. So what I say is an observation from, let's say, a small sample size, because we have incubated over 4 years, we've incubated 65 startups. And these are startups that primarily innovate in the domains which cover applications around smart cities, automotive, medtech, agri-tech, wearables, robotics and drones, and I would say a broad category, which is mobile compute. And this includes position, location, all that. All our startups are selected from more than 1,300 plus applications. So we are very selective who we uptake. But the positive part to reflect upon is that there are these many hardware across the, and when we open up applications, we get them from every part, of course from the metros and from the established cities, but even from what people would call as tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So there's tremendous amount of talent over there. Now these 65 startups, when we incubate them, these are what I would call as early stage startups. So we like to work with them, let's say on their technical roadmap, try to suggest improvements that we can spot from a systems architecture perspective. We also like to see if there are improvements that or outside help that we can bring in from their business scaling perspective. But the most important aspect that we can provide, and actually most of our panel members can provide, is mentorship around intellectual property, because we understand how important that is. We all have worked in our own respective domains. So we made IP as an important part of this program from the get-go. Now, our startups have so far collectively filed for 95 plus patents, and this list is growing. It did not start off that way. In 2016, when I remember talking to the startups, loosely speaking, about 20% of those startups were IP aware. And that was primarily because one of the founders had worked in a company where they had patented before. So they were more IP savvy compared to the rest. But now that number has, I would say, gone up to more than 90%. Like everyone is cognizant about that. What has also changed is the outlook of venture capital investors or VCs. Like early on, the VCs would kind of look at, hey, this is a product company. Let's make sure they are filing for patents and are they registering their industrial designs. So they were kind of looking at it from a checkmark perspective. But now even the VCs are looking at, hey, what is the quality of IP that these companies are filing. So this trend is greatly improving. Now, is it all rosy? No, because the number that is with detailed handholding from NASA, where for the past 4 years, you can roughly about 2 overall IoT patents which were filed in India. So that number is close to about 120-ish. So there is tremendous amount of ecosystem can do, and that's where we all can help them. And the other is IP is of course one part, right? But it truly must be considered as a part of their business strategy. The good thing about the Indian startup ecosystem is that there are notable exits, which is leading people to believe that is the right place for the next startup activity, and rightly so. But what ideally I would love to see happen is them converting their patents into licensing opportunities, into monetization opportunities, so that there is an IP-backed revenue stream that more of these startups can generate. I can provide more insights, but I know that we have a time constraint too. So if there's any questions, any other perspectives I can provide, I'll be very happy to do so.
So, thanks, Hemang. I think we'll immediately turn to the next panelist to make sure to give everyone a bit of time. So, Balwant, you're head of IP and innovation at Daimler, and you mentioned on a call we had that you had some thoughts about the patent filing intensity and potential at the Indian Patent Office. Is that something you'd care to share with the rest of us?
Sure, Arman. So I can just tell from my experience that I had at different levels before joining Daimler India. So I see that there is a huge scope of improvement when it comes to patent filing in India, because 50,000 patents annually for a country of 1.3 billion seems too less. And especially when India is being seen as a emerging leader for R&D, engineering workforce, startups, universities, and so on. And I was just looking at the data of patent filing rate over the last 10 years and how the GDP is actually growing. So I just interesting stats was that GDP on an average per year has been growing at the rate of 9% every year CAGR, whereas the patent filing is just growth over the last 10 years CAGR is 3%. And compare that with our nearest competitor, or I would say let's say China, where in the similar time period, GDP growth rate has been almost similar or a little better as 11%, but patent growth rate is 18%. So that's way above GDP growth rate. And there are multiple reasons towards it, so everybody knows it about it. Now coming on to what we can do more, there are a lot of things we can do. And in fact, the previous panelists also have mentioned it's all about the awareness issue. So I can touch upon that everybody knows awareness is important and awareness is missing. So it's not just whether awareness can be built or driven, but how it is how can be done different. And for that, I just want to reference. So Dr. Tabrez Ahmed in the previous session and previous session also Professor Abhay, that touched upon the very important point that through the education system, primarily the workforce is having this job mindset. And it is not the inventor or entrepreneur mindset. Now things are changing as Hemang also was talking about as the awareness is increasing. So when we talk about awareness, it's mostly push driven. So our patent offices, the MNCs, Indian companies, and the forums like SOCHAM, CII, all that. So they are doing their part, hats off to them to increase the awareness. So that's also, they're pushing awareness. I want to just touch upon if we can have more pull element, which really excites the people, because it's ultimately it's the people who innovate, who file patents. It's not the companies themselves. Companies are just virtual entities, right? They cannot innovate on their own. So how can we leverage? And it's a great, I think, paradox. I see Indians are naturally inventive, jugaad and all that. They are coming up with a lot of ideas, but not many ideas are actually coming to the patenting side or the innovation side as of now, as the world sees it. So how can we improve this pull factor, something which excites and motivates? So here is the idea. So I was comparing what has changed in the last 10 years for all the developed and developing countries. And I noticed that there is one thing, if we can use that, and that's the introducing the inventor remuneration as a law in India, which basically gives right and little bit of ownership for the inventors to receive some royalty when the inventions are commercialized. So this law is in place and it was introduced in the last 10 years, by the way, in several countries. So as of now, there are 20 countries which have this provision. So Germany, China, Japan, Korea are the leading ones. So around 14 European countries and 6 Asian countries have got this law. And you can see that surprisingly or coincidentally, when China introduced this law in 2008, the patent filings actually rate grew up from 17% to 29%. And it also improved their global innovation index from 37 to 14. So it's a big achievement, which we can possibly learn from our nearest neighbor. And from a personal perspective at Daimler, if I see, because we have offices in all the different countries. So wherever this law is in place, and we have centers there, R&D centers in Japan, in China, in Germany, of course, the largest one. Wherever this law is in place, we have seen a stronger commitment from the inventors there, stronger awareness, which are really driving. And it is not just an awareness or drive to file more patents. That's only the quantity. But I'm talking about the quality, that how can those patents be commercialized and really see the reality. So they are actively improving towards improving the quality and get those patents commercialized into the product. So there is a natural support from the inventors that really comes up. Yep. So that's what my one suggestion. And of course, all the fraternity, legal fraternity, patent office is also there. So if you can introduce this change as a right for inventors to get compensation, so I hope it will get that ownership amongst the Indian inventors, and it will then run on its own. It's like a viral phenomenon. So that can help. That's my view.
Sounds like an interesting idea, I think. Maybe now I'll turn to Dr. Malati Lakshmi Kumaran. You are the senior partner at Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan, and you're very engaged in the life sciences sector. If we look at that sector specifically, what are some changes you think might be made to their IP ecosystem, more specifically? And I'm sorry to say that you are on mute. There you go.
So thanks a lot. Thank ASSOCHAM for giving us this opportunity to be a panelist, and thanks, Urban. What we really need is a robust IP ecosystem. And that is what the topic, I think it's an excellent topic by ASSOCHAM. And what we really see is a big life cycle. We have R&D, we protect the IP, we commercialize, we create revenue, and then we put money back into R&D. I think Indians are very good innovators. Then why don't we have this good system that we see even in small countries, or if you look at other big multinationals, why are they able to generate a lot of market expansion using IP? I think we've not learned them, and I think it's very important, as the previous speaker Balwant said, what is China doing? What replicate that? And for that, we need a lot of awareness, and we need a lot of hand-holding and a lot of help from the government as well. First of all, I'd like to really, when we said look at the robust IP ecosystem, market expansion, it's important for us in India to get very good IP. A lot of the speakers talked about drafting good patent applications, having good innovations. That's very important, it's fine. But it's what's really happened in the last couple of years, as also O.P. Gupta said and Armina said, is we've been able to bring down the tendency of patent examination, and we are examining 20 applications. It's very good. I will be talking about what awareness later on, but first I would like to talk about how do we inculcate in innovators filing more patent applications. What are the awareness? As Mashalkar had said in CSIR when he was a DG, he said, publish and perish. If not, you patent, you publish and flourish. I think we need a top-down approach. We really need people at the top telling us how each of the companies or government institutions need to file patents. We have several IITs, we have several universities. Can they increase their share of patenting? And I think it can be done because Indians are good in innovation, but they don't realize that they are innovating. Next, I see a lot of collaboration. Look at the day of today, we're able to do something digitally. We're able to collaborate digitally. And I think it's important for us to get a good IP system is to also collaborate. Collaborate in research. It can be between institutes, it can be across the countries, it can be across institutes and companies. And that's important because this will give us a lot of IP and a value of IP, which is intangible assets. I'd like to just bring about today's, being a life science thing, I have been helping a lot of startups, innovators in the government institutes, IITs, in this pandemic area of trying to file patents in their area. And just if I take this example of COVID-19, so we have kits in detection, vaccines, antibodies, and new use of a known drug. And they come to me and they say, sorry, Indian system is such, you cannot get a patent for detection. Method of detection will get, you will get objection under 3I. Sorry, I'll help you. You may file it in other countries, but in this country you're not. So when people say, why are we not filing so many patents? A lot of the time is our patent system, our science has evolved. Today, when you see the way the technology has evolved, but are we evolving in IP? Are we evolving in the legal system? So as we come up with new innovations like RT-PCR or ELISA kits, can the government of India say these are important? Not only for other countries, but also for Indian innovators. How can we give them protection? Because once they get protection, they can then get a market value by licensing it outside, even if they can't commercialize it. Selling it in other countries also is important. Let us look at vaccines. The vaccine capital of the world. We have Serum Institute, we have Bharat Biotech, and many others. But where are we in R&D? Do we have to get the technology from outside this country? We are capable and we can do. We can do R&D. There are several Indian institutes and companies, but we want to see this, that we start innovating in the vaccine area. We start innovating in the detection area. We start innovating in producing our own antibodies. It could be for treatment, it could be for detection and so on. And I'm sure we Indians are very good because we are the pharma capital of the world. Why can't we be the capital of the world for detection, for medical devices and so on? The other problem that we have is new use of a known drug. Today, repurposing of a drug is very important. As everybody has seen hydroxychloroquine, people are repurposing it from rheumatoid arthritis to COVID. Remdesivir and so many other antiviral drugs which people are repurposing. India says no, Indian Patent Office will say no, we will not give you a patent for the new use of a known molecule or a composition using that. We've seen many patents being filed for chemicals, for masks, where you can protect, we have a mask with a coating of a chemical. But if the chemical is known, sorry, we cannot give you a patent. So I feel very bad at this time that we are innovating, we are inventing, but we have a big problem because India does not allow several patents in the area of life sciences. In engineering, I heard the previous speaker speak, there's only just 3K. But if you look at for us in life science, we have 3B, we have 3C, because if you go to vaccines, they'll say it's 3C, it's discovery. We have 3D, we have 3E, we have 3J, we have 3I, and so on. And these are all impediments for us to get a robust IP ecosystem. What else can we do? If we can, there's another one that I talked about collaboration is on FFLs, is foreign foreign filing license. As we have collaborations between countries and innovators are going across countries, can we have the retrospective way of getting FFL, especially if they're not in the security area and so on? Another impediment that we have is the Biodiversity Act, because I'm talking more about the life sciences. And this impediment is for Indian innovators, Indian inventors, Indian applicants. The minute you use an Indian bioresource for any of your applications or patent applications, it could be fermentation of waste material to make alcohol. It could be using of chemicals to come up with a good shampoo. I'm not talking of any high-tech, but very simple things. Immediately the impediment is the Biodiversity Act, and the Patent Office will not grant the patent unless you get approval from the NP. We have several impediments within the law, but also outside the law, like NBA. Another thing that I saw in people speaking said, can our bioresources be an intangible asset? Let me give you the example of guar, which is known as cluster beans. We export raw material, but why don't we innovate? When others can do so, can we also innovate in this area of BR? So we are not only just exporting BR or biological resources, but we are exporting the patent system. We're exporting the innovation. We're exporting the inventions, which is an intangible asset, and you can actually make revenue of this. And the last thing that I would like to speak about is awareness. When we say about awareness, we're talking about awareness of institutes, companies, innovators in India, but we also need awareness for the examiners in the legal system. I say that earlier speakers said about inventive step. we are very fast in bringing down the pendency. But I think we're one of the few countries where we get rejection on enablement, insufficiency, and inventor step. So we need awareness across the board as well. And India being an ISA, I think it's a great step, and we need to encourage and get more patents filed with India as ISA. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much for that perspective. And I'll turn to you, Arshad, because you are also in biosciences. And if you wouldn't mind giving us, so maybe this is a slightly different, I'm hoping a slightly different perspective, but an industry perspective for academic institutes for out-licensing of IP. You are head IP counsel at Biocon, so this should be something you're particularly relevant to speak about.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you so much, Arban, and thank you very much, Sheetal, Dr. Sheetal, for giving an ASSOCHAM for providing this opportunity to speak at this forum. So, Arban, to address to your question, I would like to say that we are a leading, biotech company of Asia, and we have ventured into the biotech businesses. Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, our chairman, she's the chairperson of this group, and we have ventured into the biosimilars, drug products. We are helping a lot of billions of patients across the globe now with our biosimilar drugs, which are sort of generic drugs of biologics drugs, and these are called as biosimilars. And as far as the licensing out of our molecules are concerned, so we are working on certain novel molecules, and as Dr. Malati has mentioned, that it is important to have collaboration between the institutes, R&D institutes, and industry, academia. So yes, it is our prerogative, and it is our privilege to work with the institutes, and we do work with the institute, large number of institutes. We are working on certain novel molecules, one of which has been recently approved. Itolizumab has been recently approved for the use of use in the patients of COVID-19 and for moderate to severe patients. It has been approved by DCGI in India. This is a novel molecule innovated by Biocon in collaboration with CMAB of Cuba. So we are working on that molecule, and we have given out license the molecule to certain institutes per se, and even in India as well as abroad. So the challenges, Urban, what we face here is that sometimes academic institutes and R&D institutes, they feel that if they are working on some method of treatment or any new novel indication which gets approved, then our purpose is to help the R&D institutes and the students to work on our molecule, which itself is a very, has got its novel properties, and it's a novel molecules, and we provide them at no cost, and we provide it to them in a good faith and collaboration, from a collaboration perspective, so that patients can benefit it. But then sometimes the question comes is that they want, when we go for the patent filings, so sometimes it gets stuck, the collaboration gets stuck. They say, no, we want the assignment of this patent. Although we are always willing to, and we have certain arrangements with the R&D institutes wherein we have given, and we have collaborations that where we give the inventorship to the institute, and we would like to have the patents with us. But depending on the circumstances, yes, if they work on a successful indication, then we try to even reward the scientist and give some monetary benefits, such as some one-time payment or etc. to the academic institute or the R&D institutes. So that's my perspective from an industry perspective, to have a collaboration with the academia and R&D institutes in India or abroad. Now, in the current scenario, we are working on various biosimilars drugs, wherein patentability is not that important, but to circumvent the innovator's patent is more important. So if there are audiences which are from pharma background, so they will certainly get benefited with this kind of knowledge basis, that which is a new field. Even in US, even in United States of America, the BPCI Act was passed in 2010 in Obama regime, and post that various companies have filed biosimilars applications for large molecules. For example, adalimumab is a $12 billion drug across the globe, for which certain companies had filed a biosimilar application and they got the approvals. They have launched the approval. Similarly, Biocon and in collaboration with Mylan has filed a breast cancer drug by name trastuzumab, and Biocon has become the first Indian company to have gotten the approval in the United States of America, and is helping and have helped the patients across the globe by the affordability, by bringing this affordable drug for the cancer patients. Recently, we got the approvals for glargine, insulin glargine. So this is again, we filed as an 505(b)(2) product, but then pursuant to the BPCI Act, it came under the purview of the transition period. And now, if somebody has to file, he or she, any company has to file a 351(k) application. While since we filed way back in 2017, and by that time the transition period of 27th of March 2020 was not yet over. So we filed that, and we got the approval as an NDA drug, non-new drug application under 505(b)(2) provisions. We are going to soon launch. It is in public domain that Biocon and Mylan has got the approval of that drug. We are going to soon launch that drug, and in the United States, and it will be a beneficial drug for the diabetic patients. There is a huge lot of population in the United States of America who is diabetic, and Sanofi has got a $4 billion of market in USA, and we will be the first ones, by the end of this month, to launch the biosimilar drug to help the patients in US and other markets, other jurisdictions, to by bringing this affordable, insulin pen to the market. We have circumvented here in the by the virtue of BPCI Act, we have circumvented a lot of patents, and we have invalidated a number of patents there. So similar provisions need to be made in India, wherein one can give the notices, or notify the innovator prior to their approval only, because here there is no linkage linked to the approvals, and DCGI, irrespective of the patent status, they give the approvals. So a lot of companies, and especially the innovator companies, and we are also trying to do that there should be a patent linkage, so that there is a certainty at the time of launch of the product. And yeah.
All right. Thank you for that perspective. I'd like us to hear about something different now. So Nishad, please. You're a partner at Kaita & Co. If that's how you pronounce it. And if we could take another sort of angle now, have a question for you is if legal or judicial precedents have played a role in how the IP landscape has evolved recently in India, and if you could give us some of the more significant examples of that, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This spoken about we should increase innovation. Yeah, how innovation. Yeah, how more. It's been great listening to all of you. I don't know how much time I have on hand just now, but then I heard people talk about how the free regime in terms of patents has been pretty restrictive, and there are provisions which talk about what is not patentable. And considering the last few months or last half year, if I may say so now, after the COVID outbreak, most of our activities are now taking place through the internet, right from day-to-day essentials till work from home accessories. We are on the internet. Computer software is an integral part of it. And computer programs per se is something which has been in the gray area when it comes to the patent regime in India. Now, in the last, I think, 20 odd years since I've been practicing, I've seen a significant shift in how courts have been dealing with the IP regime in India. They've dealt with various issues, and it's not only being standard form litigation about general infringement, but they've actually gone about interpreting statutory provisions, and what has been looked at as probably restrictive provisions in certain contexts have been opened up, have been given new dimensions, if I may say so. And it in fact creates a platform or an opportunity in one sense. And as you said, to give you an example, one of the most recent cases, which is the Farid Alani case, as we call it, has given a new dimension to what even Mrs. Malti and Hemang referred to as the 3K provisions, which talks about non-patentability of a computer program per se. There has been a lot of gray area around that because there have been 3 sets of guidelines which have come over a period of time, and it wasn't very clear as to whether is providing some innovation, if it's novel, if it gives you utility, and otherwise has an inventive step. Could it be patented like, say, in the United States? And the regime has shifted significantly. Initially, it was about a new program with a new hardware or a new program with an old hardware, giving an additional to the function. And it went on to a more restrictive regime where it said that it had to have a new hardware. And then the third regulations came in, which kind of blurred all lines and said that you have to objectively look at the invention and then decide. But no one really stated as to what was a computer program per se. What is it that it required to actually grant a patent in respect of a computer program? And that has very recently been decided by the Delhi High Court and then the IPAB. What is very significant is that this relates to a patent which was applied for in 1999 when the internet had just started. And it related to a very simply described patent which said method and device for accessing information sources on the web. So it was only helping the user filter down his requirement before a request was actually made to the internet. It was as simple as that. And yet the court has held, on the basis of the first guidelines for computer software, that so long as it has a technical effect, which results in a technical advancement, probably even computer software may be patentable. And that's my view. And why I say computer programs per se also may be patentable is that the moment you show that inventive step which results in actual utility or technical advancement, it's no longer just a computer program per se, but it is something which is giving an innovation to the public, which has an inventive step, which has a utility. And I am hopeful that going forward, a lot more innovations which are happening would actually find protection and then would be able to commercialize them. Now, just to give a perspective on what I mean by commercialization, commercialization, in my view, is not only about monetizing of IP, but it is building value through the life cycle of the intellectual property. It's right from the inception. And Malti said, what Suchi said makes a lot of sense. When you are drafting your claims,
when you're talking about computer programs with technical advancement, technical effect, it's not only about preparing a claim, but preparing an enforceable claim. And that's why when I say that commercialization or building value is right from the inception, it means that you need to take holistic advice right from the beginning. Moving to holistic advice now, what do I mean by that? When you're looking at commercialization of IP, it's not only about getting your registration, but it's also planning how you hold your IP from the long-term perspective. It means acquiring your IP not only locally, but in multiple jurisdictions, looking at the regimes of multiple jurisdictions and seeing what are the nuances there. It's about tax structuring and not only about the IP laws. It's about seeking lendings and how lending can materialize. One aspect which Suchi very pertinently mentioned was about collateralization, which has been spoken of in the IP policy, but has not really been implemented as of now. There is not a strong each statute which talks about how you should be recording a collateral which is created. How do you mortgage, say, trademarks or copyrights? So that's one aspect of it. In terms of other innovations which have come in through judicial precedents, I would say in the course of your life cycle of IP, it's not only about protection, but also enforcement. So in that context, the courts have also been very active in the Indian context. There have been various measures which have been adopted from various other jurisdictions. One of them, which is very significant in the context of enforcement, is a dynamic injunction in the context of online content and online data. In the context of website domain name squatting, for example, where it's not only about granting injunctions in respect of a specific domain name, but variants of those domain names also. Courts have gone steps forward in terms of John Doe actions, if I may call them that, where they've passed orders upon intermediaries, banks, etc., to put forth information pertaining to violators. So where violators cannot be easily identified, especially in the context of the internet, there have been measures which have been put forth whereby you can seek orders from the court seeking details of these infringers so that they can be struck off the map of IP innovators. So that broadly, I think, is what I had to say. If there are any further questions, I think I'll be more than happy to address them. I think a lot has been already spoken of during the course of this session, so I just thought I could give a slightly different dimension to it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you very much. And I think there is so much to say here, but we are running out of time. Maybe I'll just sort of end by saying that a well-balanced system for patents and other IPR benefits everyone. According to the US Chamber of Commerce, economies are 26% more competitive in countries with strong IP protection. That's not going to surprise anyone. The European Patent Office, they've found that 45% of total economic activity in the EU originates from IP-intensive industry. That's a really high number. I think one stat which I was particularly interested in, and I'll end on this, it's on a more individual level. From the Global Innovation Policy Center in Washington, they found that the average person working in an industry that is IP intensive earned nearly 50% more than someone in an industry that's not IP intensive. So that was a good statistic, I thought. And by that, I'll leave it to you, Sheetal.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Urban, and thanks to all the panelists, speakers from government officials, And I would like to once again congratulate the student winners, because they definitely have done a hard work, and out of such a huge list to emerge out as the winners is something really big. We tried to ask them to put their videos on so that we all can clap for them, but because of technical issues, we are not able to. But many congratulations to all of you. And I would like to personally acknowledge, Nahid's support from SOCHAM and Yashpal's support from SOCHAM and their entire team, Gaurav and everyone. They have really done a great work, including Weber Shandvik team, because they've been working on their foot, on their toes since morning. But I think we've all together done a great work. So I think we all deserve big round of applause. So thank you so much. Stay safe, and please go back to your families. Enjoy your time. Thanks once again for being there. Thank you.
I think I, on behalf of all the panelists, would like to thank Sheetal Chopra for doing an excellent job. I think you're really great in moderation. And this is not that I'm trying to praise you, but you've done a great job. And thanks,
I second your thoughts.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, thanks, ASSOCHAM as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Urban, for coordinating this. We're all diverse.
Sure.
Thanks, Urban. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Goodbye. And congratulations to the winners again. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, the winners.
Last thing. Last me.